Welcome back to Tata Steel Chess India. I'm Grandmaster Robert Hess alongside me, International Master Soumya Swaminathan. Once again, we have more chess here in Calcutta, but it's a new day and a whole new tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. What a great day. Sunday, so we have a lot of spectators outside, and what a nice way to spend your Sunday playing Blitz. I'm in a fun mood, and I'm sure the players are too. They get a chance to do good in case they had a bad rapid, and they get a chance to continue their form in case they did well there.
Well, someone who would love to continue her form is Divya Deshmukh. She won the rapid event. That was a stellar finish. She was in tears after winning an event she wasn't even supposed to play in initially. It's a crowning achievement on her very young career.
Absolutely. Like I read, one of the headlines in today's newspapers was the queen of her own fairy tale, and I think that puts it aptly. Also had a chat with her dad, and he was so proud of her. Definitely, so she must be looking to continue her form, and just in case the chat might not notice, the pairings are the same because they start with the same seedings in the Blitz as well. So we'll see the same pairings for the first 9 rounds, and then they play the same opponents with the colors reversed. So they get a chance to play with both colors. That's fair.
Yeah, it's definitely fair. The quicker time show, 3 minutes for the whole game with 2 seconds added per move. We see the players going on stage, and why don't we get chat involved early this time? I know sometimes I leave you hanging. Chat, who do you think will win the Tata Steel India Chess Blitz? Let us know who you think the favorite is. Reminder to everybody, it's a whole fresh scoreboard. 0 out of 0. Everyone in the field has a chance.
Absolutely, and even though Wenjun starts out as the favorite in terms of rating, she has not played a Blitz game since December 2018. Can you believe that, Robert?
No, I cannot. And these youngsters, they probably play a lot more Blitz than some of the more experienced players in the field. These two on screen here, well, this is going to be a fun start. Divya Deshmukh gets to play Harika Dranavali. Remember, Divya beat Harika with black in the rapid event. And Divya, all eyes are on her, as you said, the queen of her own fairy tale. And she does not want that fairy tale to end.
Absolutely. She's looking to make a sequel out of it, part 2 coming in, and she's of course playing a very formidable opponent in Harika, who's had a great Blitz run herself. She was a finalist in the Speed Chess Championship last year.
Yeah, she's done very well in the Women's Speed Chess Championship. She's such a strong player. And, she did have a decent event at the end of the Rapid, 4.5 out of 9, clear 4th place. She would like to do better in the Blitz, of course. And, the problem with sequels is they're always worse than the original, at least in terms of movies. I don't think that Divya, she wants to write a different script here in Calcutta.
Probably. We will find out if it will turn out to be one of those bad ones or the good ones. There are a few exceptions to that rule. We also have a lot of other players playing, like Humpy. I had a chat with her last night about her tournament, and she didn't seem very upset, even though on the outside it looks like she had a disappointing tournament, but she was quite happy with her games. She mentioned that the only problem was on the clock. And of course, Blitz is something everyone enjoys. Hey, look at that, we have a new guest.
Oh, that is very sweet. I love it when youngsters get to come and make an opening move for some of their heroes in the chessboard. And by the way, we're so focused on Divya and Harika. This matchup, Humpy Koneru against Wenjun, the women's world champion, taking on the number 1 from India for such a long time. It's Blitz, but it's still going to be a tense match.
Absolutely. Humpy is the current silver medalist in the World Blitz Championship. She loves playing Blitz. She's mentioned it a few times before. And Wenjun, of course, there we have kickoff. Let's start with this match, shall we?
Sure, let's stay here.
We have it on screen. Humpy opens with d4, knight of 6, c4, e6. Wenjun usually goes for the QGD, and now it's switched to Divya and Harika's board. Let's have a look at what they are doing. Oh, we have the board on the screen right now. Divya goes for Harika opens with the Reti. It's one of her pet openings, especially works really well in Blitz. I really like going for setups in Blitz myself because you don't have to bother too much about the opening moves. You can play them really fast and gain time on the clock. We want to remind the viewers that there is an increment of 2 seconds per move. So it's not a 3-0 knockout, but you get an increment, and even if you're sometimes you're a queen up and you can't convert it.
Yeah.
But that's not the case with increments. So, yeah, we have a usual reti with the bishop f4, unusual move in this position.
Yeah, it's going to happen in blitz chess. People just are making moves based on feel rather than necessarily based on thinking. But when someone goes for a fianchetto, pushing your rook pawn does make perfect sense. I said this yesterday, developing the rook on its starting square. And a6 played by Divya. She does not mind capturing away from the center. It opens up some files. So quick play from Divya and from Harika. And something I want to note is that the good thing about increment is that, as we're talking about, you can build up a little bit of time. And if you have a winning position, you will have the amount of time to convert it. But 2 seconds really isn't that much additional time per move.
Absolutely. I mean, they both are playing so fast. All the moves are being made on intuition. But it's unclear whose favor the pawn push is, because you have pushed your pawn to b5, but then black doesn't allow a into b6. She plays b5, and now the pawn on a5 could be a potential weakness in the future. So it could be a good move or a bad move depending on how black responds. White goes for d4, so maybe she wants to put the pawn structure with c3 and b4, or maybe b3 and c4. We will find out. You want to look at the other games quickly before we stick to one?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's look at the game between Humpy and Wenjun. You mentioned that Humpy Canero, she loves blitz chess, the silver medalist in the most recent women's World Blitz Championship. And we have a topical line. This may look strange to most of us. Why is a king out in the middle of the board? Where did the queens go? This is kind of all the rage these days from the semi-Tarash. And in this position, you see the eval bar saying it's about level. Black is up a pawn for her troubles, including her king in the center.
Oh, alright. And I don't like the king in the center, especially in a blitz game, because it's so much harder to defend when you're short on time. I would prefer to take white here. Wenjun, 1 minute down almost. She has 1 minute 42 seconds as opposed to Humpy's 2 minutes to 24. King f7, logical. You want to not allow white to take on e4 and pin the knight on f6. So king f7 moves out of the way. And what next? Bishop takes, and white takes on e4 next. And well, she has recovered the pawn with a better pawn structure.
And we've talked about this many times, that opposite colored bishops in some endgames does mean drawish position, but not in a position like this. It's open board, both rooks for each side are on the board, and Wenjun, has she not recaptured yet? Is she deciding whether to take with the king? I would not take with the king, unless knight take with check. She should take with the pawn, of course.
Very surprising decision to think at this point. You want to save as much time as possible in a blitz game. What's just happened?
But isn't that difficult, Soumya, going from rapid one day to blitz the next? Because you're used to having a base time of 25 minutes, then suddenly you have a base time of just 3. And I guess she did make a move. The move did finally come in there. Knight takes e4, of course, was the response after gf6. But this looks good for white to my eyes. I feel like
f5. I don't like that move, because bishop h5, and then the king is even more insecure after f5, because you give the... Okay, I get it, because you cannot go knight g5 because the bishop pins it with bishop h6, and maybe it works out for black.
Yeah, it's a big maybe, a big question mark. And for Humpy right here, she's trying to decide, do I give this check with the bishop? Do I give the check with the knight? Where does my knight want to go? Should I go to d6 and sort of force this exchange? Who's better, this knight or the bishop on e2? These are difficult questions to answer, especially when you don't have time. So Humpy right now, she wants to play accurately. She does bring her knight up with the check, and the king is on f6. So this game has been very rich in terms of opening theory, and now it's going to get tactical. But I'm starting to like white's chances. I just prefer the rook on the d file here. I prefer this active knight and the coordination of white's pieces.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks very good for white. I also like your idea with rook 2 coming to the 7th rank, and the king might just get checkmated on g6. After rook d7, rook f7. You want to go switch to Divya's game and come back?
Okay, let's go between those two games for the first time. We will be back here. It looks like Humpy with a nice position. And Divya against Harika. Wow, what a position we have just tuned into. I have to quickly count. It looks like it's even material, but it's a messy position because white's king does feel like it's in some danger with black's pieces staring down the f-file.
Yeah, I mean, I would be scared. This is typical Divya style. She's fearless, and she doesn't, even if she makes a mistake, she focuses on the next move, not the previous mistake, doesn't ruminate, and Blitz suits her style very much. She has over 2,600 games played on Chess.com. Only in Blitz with a rating of 2,600. She's very, very strong in Blitz as well. Of course, Harika as well has a rating about 2,600 on Chess.com, 2,682. So this is going to be a tough fight. Maybe it could be like the main matchup for the championship. These two girls might be the main contenders.
Yeah, they're both so strong, and the difference between online and in person is the pre-move ability. In Blitz over the board, to grab a piece that might be far away, easier to do that with a mouse. For example, I can just draw an arrow down the board very quickly. It takes more time to actually grab the pieces. And this pawn a5 is loose, but so is this pawn on d4, so both sides have weaknesses, and both sides now down to about 40 seconds.
Absolutely, and I'm constantly looking at the h3 square. I want to bring the queen to h3 via c8 or d7, but yes, black has taken on e2, so now there's no more checkmate idea. Now the d4 pawn will be a huge asset for black. She might push it even further, not immediately, but maybe after queen d7, or do we take the pawn on a5? Queen c5, yeah, she decides to maintain it.
Yeah, she wants to keep this one. Also, your d3 idea looks very vicious with the rook and queen lined up on the f2 pawn. So, Soumya, this looks scary for white. If she's unable to stop this pawn, I think she should do it right now with queen d3.
Oh yeah, queen d3 is a very, very safe, solid move here. Queen d3 played on the board. I'm looking at queen f5, and I am afraid for the white king, but maybe rook f4 saves the day for white, even though it does give black a great pawn structure in the rook endgame.
Yeah, queen trade, it's not always clear who that favors, but instead Divya goes rook f7, so what's the idea here? If rook takes d4, isn't this a free pawn in the center for white? Oh, she wants to double in the f-file, so she's going for a counterattack. This is one of those moments where white can try to push this pawn. It looks very risky. In a classical game, you get away with it, but in Blitz, it's too worrisome.
Absolutely, and now rook f3 coming in. There might be a sacrifice on g3, but she plays queen e5, threatening rook f3 and rook g3 in the future. Queen e4 on the board. Okay, it seems like Harika managed to save herself from all the threats with queen e4 and queen g2, but a5 pawn was lost. So black is okay. She has equalized the material and still has a great attack.
That's a very classy move. I thought she just blundered rook takes f2, but you'll note you couldn't take because the queen there was pinning on the diagonal. So now we have what should be an even endgame, but this is Blitz chess. This is going to be hectic down the stretch. It looks like Harika is doing the right thing, going after the a6 pawn because the b pawn is lost, and look at Divya keeping winning chances alive by not trading off pawns.
Yeah, that's very clever. Divya making the most of her Blitz skills in this game. Rook a3 by Harika. It's an even game, but will she go rook c6? Yes, she does. She wants to maintain her chances. King to g6, and well, there are not too many ideas. The idea is that you wait for white to make a mistake.
Yes, because at some point she likely will go after this b pawn. It's going to be a trade of pawns, so it's equal material, but the pawns are not on the same flank. So this game should end in a draw with proper play, but it's hard to play properly when you're playing Blitz.
Absolutely, that's the toughest part. It's all about skill, intuition, and reflexes in Blitz, not about calculation anymore. King h3, rook d1. There might be a checkmate. No, not really, because the king always comes back to g2, rook f3, rook e6. It is an equal endgame. We will see if Divya or Harika manage to convert it into a full point.
And it looks like Humpy and Wenjun, they drew their game. So some draws on the other boards. This game also looking very likely to end in that peaceful result.
Absolutely. Anna Oshanina and Irina Krush have also made a draw. So there are two results. Meanwhile, there is a great advantage in Savita Shree's board against Vantika. Do you want to stick to this game or go to that one? But Savita has converted. We have a result there. So let's stick to this one. Nino is also made a draw against Shuvalova. 3 draws in the Blitz.
Lots of
Blitz
draws
tournament.
thus far. And for Savita, we'll definitely look at her game in the next round. She did win round 1. And I see what Divya's trying to do. She really wants to get her king to defend this pawn so that when she takes the b4 pawn, she's not losing the a6 pawn. She has an extra pawn on the queen side. We talked about this yesterday. In endgames, having a flank pawn that's extra is usually a good thing.
Wow, that's very smart, bringing the king to the queen side. The problem is that white will always threaten to bring her rook to the 7th rank and attack the king side pawn instead. So we might reach a end game where black has the queen side pawns a6 and b5, and white will have f2, g3 and h4. This is quite likely to occur in this game unless the players decide to be peaceful.
And we see that Divya has shifted her rooks from the 6th rank to the
And
d
with
file.
d4
Rook
coming
d4. Uh-oh, this could turn very quickly. I think rook g6. Wow, what a find from Haruka without time on her clock. She's going after this a6 one. If she trades rooks, she might lose.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a very, very cool move by Haruka. Both of them so alert. They're finding these small plans even in a 5 seconds, 3 seconds time, and showing how to convert small advantages, even though maybe it will still be a peaceful draw. King h3, rook e6, king g2. We don't want to push h5 because white goes rook g5 and picks up the h5 pawn in case we don't defend it.
And g6,
G6.
at long last.
She does want to go h5.
Wow, she's playing for... it's very clear that Divya isn't playing for a win. And what she's done is she's protected both her kingside and her queenside pawns with the same rook. That allows the black rook to go to e4, and suddenly black has some activity. But white should probably start trying to push pawns of her own.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Maybe f3. Yes, f3 is a very good suggestion. But rook e, it allows rook e3, and the second rank also becomes weak. So does the f3 pawn. Rook f6. She wants to probably wait and maybe push a5 at the right time when the b5 pawn will be protected.
Does she want a rook d5? She does, but apparently that was a mistake. Rook c2 check. Well, where is the... Oh, this is not the right choice. Maybe this is going back to a2, but now black's king is active, but the rook cuts that king off.
Wow, but king on e3 looks formidable. I don't see why this is bad for black. I really like it for black. King e2. Now rook e2 coming in with the idea to play rook b2 next. Rook e4 is also a threat. Of course, white will pick up the g6 pawn after rook c6 instead.
Yeah, well, this is such a race, right? You go to e4, but she's playing it safe. She doesn't want to lose the game. She wasn't certain if going after the b pawn would be good, but the black king is stuck here. This rook cuts it off. Oh, but it's
she
a5.
wants to play a5. But
Well,
then you give up. Yes, now rook c1. She's playing for small tricks, and that's the right attitude, I guess, because both of them have very less time. Rook c1, rook e6, rook c5, and now rook e4. No, she does go king d4, rook to c1.
But she can play a5. I've been calculating this. She, at some point, it's a very difficult move to play in Blitz. If you sacrifice this pawn and put your rook in front of it, if white passively tries to keep it, then black's b pawn will be too fast. But, oh, is this rook coming into b3 now?
Yes.
Is it about time?
Probably it's finally time. No, she does go back rook e6. So she wants to understand the position first and then make the decision. King e6 on the board. Maybe rook d6 now, because you have cut off the king. Okay, king to d2. G4 can be played.
At some point, if Haruka wants to play for a win, she can. I think she's been so focused on the defense that she hasn't thought, can I turn this into offense? At some point, even with a move like f5, that could be ambitious chess from her.
Yeah, f5 even now, right? But f5, and then there's so much to calculate, so she plays it safe. King f2, king d3. Well, I'm thinking it will be...
She did play g4.
She does play g4
Yes.
at the right moment. The rook is on d6, so there is no rook e3 check. And now white can try for a win after king g5 and f5 and create a passer of her own.
This is looking very dangerous for black. I mean, even moves like
Rook
rook
G7.
g7 going right for the pawn. That does look worrisome for black. So it's rook f7 instead. And rook f6 becomes a threat because in the trades, white wins the g-pawn and pushes here. So
And now f5, and we simply push the h-pawn. Or rook g7, that also is...
Rook takes g6. If rook f4, this rook f6 winning for white.
Wow, I did not see that. Rook b4, rook to a6, rook g... Now it's a race with f5, f6, b3.
Too fast.
This is very fast.
Yeah.
Rook g1 and king h6 played.
It's over. White is winning this game now. See, Haruka, she was playing, they received a handshake, and Haruka wins game one, but she was playing defensively for a while, but she turned that switch. We talk about this so often. She knew when suddenly she could play for the win.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like she was being very solid and didn't want to even try, and then when she realized that the point had occurred, black had played rook to d6, exactly at that moment she plays g4 and converts the point into a whole one instead of only a half. Wow, great result for Haruka, and Divya as well. I mean, tried her best. Can we have a look at that position, Robert?
Just what a moment, as you said, the rook on d6. If this rook is on e6, let's say that was black's move, g4 doesn't work because you can throw in this check, kicking the king back, then taking the pawn. And I blundered the rook, so that wasn't quite the accurate line.
Maybe rook to e2?
Yeah, maybe rook e2 and rook e4, so black is going after all the pawns. But that recognition, as you pointed out, Soumya, after king on d4, there's no checks, let's go g4, and that was scary for Divya.
Wow. Yeah, this is very scary to defend even in a classical game, and in Blitz I think black had almost no chance unless you just reach the right move by intuition. And also Savita won a great game against Vantika.
Okay, so Savita with a nice win. It would seem, this final position looks wonderful. Opposite colored bishops do not mean draws, and it seems that time played a factor in addition to the extra c-pawn that she had.
Wow, yes. Do we go through the game? Maybe quickly? I think it was queen d4. It was an unusual Sicilian opening with queen to d4.
I played this as a kid.
Oh,
yeah, I used to play this. The idea is that you quickly develop your pieces. Your queen is on an awkward square, but it's okay because it's centralized and black isn't threatening anything of your own.
Right, and we got the center control with c4 and e4 pawns, and it's just easier to play as white. Accelerated dragon positions, this pawn structure with d6 and g6 and the bishop on g7 are a little tough to play as black if you are not clear about the plans you need to make. So b3, and the knight pawn on c4 is not hanging because the knight on c3 defends the rook. So yeah, I think just easier to play as white in this position.
Yeah, the side that controls the pawn breaks is often the side with the advantage. No d5, none of that kind of stuff. There's no pawn breaks on the queen side over here for black. And f5, that's the one pawn break in her control. It's a good move, but white threw the knight forward, the queen retreated, and now some of those light squares are very weak. Here's a bishop pair for white, and that's a classy move from Savita.
Yeah, absolutely. Queen d5 is stunning. You must, if you take on d5, I take with the e pawn, and I have this wonderful pawn chain from a2 to d5, all good, and I will slowly push c5 as well after a3, b4 in the future. And let's see how it progressed. Bishop to b2. She also has a pair of bishops, which I didn't notice.
No, but because it doesn't look like a great bishop, and nice play by black there, controlling the dark square. So let's see where suddenly this turned. Ooh, that's where the opposite bishops came from, where white took a knight, and this is the resulting position. In classical chess, I'm sure this would be a draw, but in blitz chess, anything can happen. And let's see where white really started taking the advantage. This seems totally equal still, but maybe that b4 move, a little bit too ambitious, because here white is gaining control of some important squares, but still looks equal.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what exactly went wrong for black, because it looks completely under control. There is no check.
Oh, nice find.
This is a nice tactic. Bishop d6 runs into rook g5, and the king on f1. Okay, rook h8 is a move, but it doesn't get checkmated because black's king is also weak.
Yeah, though this looks a bit scary. If you could put this rook on d2, that's mate, and it seems that black tried to go for a similar checkmate, and
for rook g2 as well, c5, and you make a square on c4. I didn't notice that.
But maybe that's the thing. The rook should come this way. It's also a checkmating threat. So at this moment after c5, rook d1 check was a fatal error, giving white the advantage. Rook c1 would have kept the king in the box, and it feels like a position where at best white has to give up this rook probably for the bishop, maybe with the check here, and somehow escape with the king. But this is a close call because rook c3 was a mating threat.
Yeah, the rook c1 might have won the game for Vantika, as black instead she goes rook d1, just one move to the right, and it's a mistake. And of course then white's king was free to go to c4 and then b5, and it's no more a problem.
Game decided by one move, one square even. And we talk about this. When you're attacking, you don't necessarily just give checks. You look to keep the king in the mating net. And then the king was able to escape. Savita wins. That was a really hard-fought game one. And I think game two should begin any moment now.
Yes, the next round will begin any moment. It's scheduled to begin at 3:20. And it is 3:20 in Calcutta. So let's go through the results. Harika won against Divya. Nino drew with Polina, Savita won against Vantika, Anna Ushanina drew against Irina Crush, and Humpy Koneru drew with Wenjun. We will have kickoff for round 2 very soon.
Yes, and we mentioned how Humpy was the silver medalist in the Women's World Blitz 2022. Polina Shuvalova was the bronze medalist. So some very high performers on the biggest stage of Blitz chess. And Savita, she gets a win in the first game, as does Harika. Savita won the final round of the Rapid. You had mentioned maybe there could be some momentum from winning in the final stretch. Let's see if she can continue that momentum.
Oh yes, of course. She is playing against Shuvalova with the black pieces in round 2. The games have begun. If we can have the board on the screen, we will wait for the board to come on screen. Oh no, we have the player's camera on the screen, and that's yeah, we can see they are fully focused. It's a Sicilian.
Also, the
Rosolimo Sicilian.
There's so many people in the audience.
Yeah.
I love seeing that. It's a Sunday here in Kolkata, and many more fans are joining for the event, which is great to see.
Yeah, there are more people in the audience than the amount when we entered.
Right, it's been growing.
Yeah.
It's really cool to see that. It's Blitz chess. It's really exciting just to see the speed of these players. And, well, this isn't exactly the most open of starting positions, but we'll see if Paulina with the white pieces, she loves her Alpine Sicilians, if this can go her way with the white pieces.
Yeah, it was a Moscow variation of the Naidov, and Polina, of course, is a flawless fighter on Chess.com, and she's had a rating of about 2,700 on the website, but now she's down to 2,600, which is also a great rating. And she plays a lot of Blitz, we checked, right?
Oh, she plays many Title Tuesdays. She's often defeating even higher rated players, all these grandmasters. She's pretty much a grandmaster at this point. Her rating in classical chess is about 2,500. I think she's just waiting on a norm, but she will add grandmaster to her resume in the near future. And right now she's added a lot of space to her position because her pawn went suddenly to d4 and up to d5. And if you get a rook on the c file, I feel like white will have an advantage here.
I think white did get something because usually there is a pawn on c4 and c7 in these King's Indian type positions, but here there is no pawn, so white got a lot of extra moves in the King's Indian. It's almost like imagine a King's Indian with the pawn going to c4, c5 and taking on d6. So that's what white has achieved. Meanwhile, black's attack has not even started. The queen is completely misplaced on c7. She has to be on the d8 h4 diagonal, or e7 is a great square, but yeah, I think white is just simply better. Maybe b5 could be a move, but knight g4, yeah, makes sense. You want to play f5 as soon as possible.
So maybe bishop e3 was an inaccuracy because it allowed knight g4 hitting the bishop and then f5. And that's what happens in Blitz chess, right? We make a quick move, it looks very natural, but it's an inaccuracy, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And now rook c1 makes sense, queen d8, and now is black threatening to simply play f4, g5, rook f7, knight f8, knight g6, you know, bring all her pieces to the king's side, and what is white going to do?
Yeah, it's one of these questions where that looks very scary, so I'd want to think about taking, but that invites a pawn towards the center. Black gets a huge attacking potential, and it looks like Polina has made her move. She decides to take on f5, and what is next here? Maybe...
Knight h4. Again, a typical idea, but it was also possible on the earlier move, so I'm wondering why she decided to take.
Probably because of tactics. I think that in the previous position, maybe there's a knight takes e4 with this knight being loose on h4. It just was too much to calculate in the short time frame. But g3, that's a risky move. Not many people would play that move. It does defend this knight, so that means there's no tactics on the diagonal. But I feel like later f4 will be even stronger.
Yeah, I was concerned about f4, and the e4 square is guarded. So maybe first we need to kick back the knight on c5 with b4. As soon as possible. But yeah, knight f e4 makes sense. You want to, if you exchange, you get another knight on e4, and you can also maybe pick up the dark squared bishop on d2 if you get a chance. Probably black is the one enjoying this position more than white, and you don't want to give up the dark squared bishop because then the black bishop would be so happy. It's not even like blocked behind its own pawns. It can come to g5 via f6 or h5 and bishop h6 in the future.
I think Savita's playing really, really well thus far. In game 1, it looked like she played extremely solidly and accurately, and now here in game 2, I would be taking this bishop on d2 and playing e4. Just open up this dark squared bishop and say, I'm the only one who can control this diagonal.
That's a great point. I think Savita will go for that because there are also not many other good moves in the position. white is threatening to take on e4. Of course, you don't lose a pawn because bishop takes, pawn takes, rook takes, and there's bishop h3, and you are okay. But knight g5 played. She wants to keep the knight.
Yeah, she wants to go for that h3 pawn. You just mentioned it was hanging. e4 also threatens to win a pawn on the diagonal. f4 looks very scary, but f4, it may lead to an attack for black, but it could also lead to an attack for white because you're opening at these light squares in front of the black king.
King h2 and now e4 as you mentioned.
One of these pawn pushes. I don't know which one to choose. Soumya, which would you go with?
I was liking e4 until you showed me f4 and now I'm confused. Maybe f4 is stronger because pawn takes will undermine the knight on h4, sorry. She doesn't go for either. She keeps her chances. Actually, this is a very good strategy that you let white decide what to do because you're threatening both e4 and f4 as Tata said, threat is greater than execution. So she keeps her chances. Queen h5 and maybe bishop h8 now? Bishop e8 now, sorry.
Yeah, bishop e8, kicking the queen away from h5. That looks very good. It does leave the f5 square hanging later. She plays it, but she probably is going to go back. And Savita, she's showing patience. That's something that a lot of people don't do, is they rush. They go e4, f4, let's go for the attack. But she's going back and forth. It looks like we might see a repetition if she plays bishop d7. Polina does not have to play queen h5, but black's structure is better here.
It will be repeated 3 times or no? The queen was on d1, so it won't be. Now queen h5 will repeat the position 3 times in fact, but Polina decides to play f4, so she refuses it.
And it's no surprise, she is a fighter, like her Chess.com username says. She is going for more. She doesn't just want to make a draw. If you take on f4, that looked bad, opening the g file, white's rook was first, so e4 is such a good response.
Yeah, e4 is fantastic, and the knight on h4, it will come to e3 in the future, but it will have a very long journey. Meanwhile, oh, wow. So I thought she will save her bishop, but she didn't, so she took the knight. And queen h5, bishop e8, now g6.
G6 looks very scary with the h6 pawn being loose. Actually not even sure how black follows this up. Bishop takes h6.
Bishop h6, queen b2.
Ah, and the queen is always protecting the bishop, which is very important to stop a checkmating attack. But
bishop c3 and now queen g5.
Huge move. That's the only move for black to stay in the game, but it's also an obvious one, so she'll play it.
Queen g5 and then, but it's so complex because it remains difficult because queen takes, pawn takes, bishop takes, king takes, and we have rook e7, but then maybe king h6 and rook h7 checkmate.
I know that's a good variation. If not good for Savita if that were to happen, but it's important that there are checkmating nets. But there's also this pawn on g6 that's loose. d2 is something that white always has to be scared about here. I think that black should probably pick up this pawn and figure out the rest later. Instead, wow, she pushes. She's showing no fear whatsoever.
Yeah, she likes her position. I can say that because she's pushing her pawns. Bishop into g6 is obvious. And what did she play next? She took on c3 and then took the pawn on g6. Rook e6 on the board. King g7 will run into rook c7. The other rook comes to c7. And king h6, rook h7 is not yet checkmate, but king g5, h4.
Oh, I'm going to show that very, very quickly. It didn't happen, but just because such a beautiful variation, rook h7, this bishop is pinned, king takes h4 would have been checkmate. So you've been calling for that checkmating net. Moves are happening very quickly. We'll get to the live position. Black brings the king h7. If this rook takes the pawn and the next rook joins the h file, that's another checkmate.
Yes, absolutely. It's scary for white now, black now, but rook f2 a good move because king h3 even, rook b2. I thought she will double on the f file, but king h3. Now, she's following your advice.
Oh, what a move!
Wow.
It saves the day because you can block with the rook.
Yeah, that's a fantastic resource for black. And black is it's an equal pawn rook endgame, but rook g6, rook a2. But black might have. Would you prefer white or black in this position?
Oh, white for sure. It's something you mentioned yesterday. The black king is cut off, so there could be checkmating nets. She actually allows the king out. She's going to make a draw by winning the b pawn.
Right. Oh, she doesn't. She might play king g5. No, she doesn't. She plays d6. They are playing so fast. a5, rook d8. Now d7, rook g8 is a threat. So maybe king f7 might be the move. Yeah. f4 anyway. And what about d7?
Yeah, it's going to go back, king and then
g7.
At some point, white probably has to bring the rook away, and we'll see a trade of pawns. And Yeah, this is what's happening right now. There's the draw agreed. Savita Shri, that's a very good draw for her with the black pieces. She wins game 1, draws game 2. Which game should we head on over to?
Oh, we should go to Harika's game against Nino because she might be getting her second win in this tournament already.
Wow.
E5 on the board. The king is stuck in a mating
It's
neck,
checkmate.
Robert.
Yeah, king g6, rook g8 is checkmate soon, but not quite yet.
Let's find it. Rook g7 maybe, king h8, and yeah, as you mentioned, it's maybe just e6 and e7.
I didn't take my own advice. If king g6, rook a7 to g7,
That's
and it looks
great.
like the game is over. Harika has won. This makes sense. Nino's king can't escape. And I keep saying, don't always give a check. Look for the mating net. The king has no squares to go to. Rook g7 ends it.
Wow, fantastic. And also rook h8, rook h6 was available. This is just fantastic. So Nino resigned, and great for Harika. She got her form back. She finished with an equal score in the rapid event, 4.5 out of 9, and now she's won the first 2 games. So she's gaining form as she's entering this tournament.
Yeah, that's good news for the Indian fans, and there are a lot of people who are suggesting, okay, the younger generation, it's their time to shine, and Harika is saying, not so fast, I'm still here, and I'm going to lead the charge. So 2 out of 2 for her. It looks like Anna Ushanina beats Vantika in this round, and Wenjun beat Divya, so Divya 0 out of 2 to start the Blitz.
It's a difficult start, but there are so many rounds, Robert. 16 rounds to go. I mean, there's a lot of chances for things to change. Do we go through one of the games?
Yeah, maybe let's look at women's world champion Wenjun, where the final position is particularly brutal. One-sided for black, up a piece to begin with, but winning that rook. Let's see how Divya fared with the white pieces. She played a Trumpovsky, which you said is one of her pet lines.
Openings, yes, of course. And it was supposed to be a surprise, but no, it's no more a surprise. She's played so many games on Chess.com and on OTB. Bishop takes, pawn takes, and now pawn takes c5, e6, and what next? Let's go.
This was game 1, I want to say, of the 2016 World Championship. They had a Trumpovsky in that championship match, and we see that Black regains the pawn. Black has the bishop pair, but the worst pawn structure with the double pawns. And let's see how Divya handled this. So black castled, even though there's no pawn in front of the king. I tend to like the bishop pair. I have to say, I'm always a fan of getting the 2 bishops.
And also, once the queens get exchanged, black doesn't have to worry about the king being weak or any of that stuff. I'm curious to find out how black takes advantage of the kingside pawn structure. I mean, it's clearly unfavorable.
Yeah, it should be unfavorable, but the good thing is at some point f5 was going to be played, and that's a good move by Divya, stopping that pawn push. And all these trades, now it's being tactical. This king is in the center, and if the bishop moves away from the diagonal, this is very scary.
Yeah, it could be very, very scary. King on e2 looks odd, and b3 will be met with knight takes a2, rook a1, and then maybe b5?
I like it. Yeah, be ambitious, because if the bishop saves itself, there's knight c1 check all of a sudden,
Wow.
and black has the upper hand. So that's a dangerous line. She went knight e to d2, correct move. Bishop a4, still b3, the a2 pawn is going to be vulnerable. She chooses to move rook to g1, and now black gets free play on the queen side. So this is where it started to turn around in Wenjun's favor. And I have to say, just instant replay, this pawn looks like it's hanging on a2, but she doesn't go for it. I like that she goes for the bishop pair. It is the stronger choice, in my opinion, to just say, I have 2 bishops against 2 knights on an open board. Big advantage for black.
Yeah, absolutely. Like she played b4. Now the king is still not safe, Robert. It might come back to e2, but then bishop b5, and the king is still stuck in a awkward position with the rook being on g1 doing nothing absolutely.
Not playing a part in the game, and we see the bishop retreat to b5 with check. The king runs away, and I love moves like this. We're so tempted to deliver an immediate check. So, wait a second, my king, this is an endgame. Why can't I use my king as a weapon later on, especially if this knight were to move? And as we see the game continue, it was going up the board, and if you allow it to continue just running up, it could be even more dangerous. And move by move, it looks like Wenjun created problems. And here, Soumya, this is where it all went wrong for Divya. The position actually isn't so bad if she plays knight f5 check and gets rid of the bishop pair by force. This apparently is an equal position, still very complicated. Instead, she decided to go for an attack, but it fails because she drops a pawn.
Oh, that's unfortunate, and I think it's we can quickly go over the last moves of the game because the game three is about to begin, Robert, and we don't want to miss the start. So e2, knight d2, and bishop takes on g2, I guess, and we make a queen. So white resigned after bishop g2, king e2, and yes, now we are winning a whole rook. So tough game for Divya, but great game by Wenjun. She got her first win in this tournament, the Blitz one, because it's a different tournament than the Rapid. And let's go to the next matchup. Whom do we focus on in this game? Maybe Humpy's board against Vantika. Oh, we have the results. So Wenjun won against Divya, and Irina made a draw against Humpy. We didn't get a chance to look at that. Anna Oshinina beat Vantika. So tough for Vantika. She's lost her first two games, Robert.
Yeah, this field is just vicious. Every matchup is going to be difficult. So Anna Ushenina wins with the black pieces. Paulina, we saw that draw against Savita. And Harika, 2 out of 2. She's in first place after those first couple rounds. I think there are a few minutes before the next game begins, but we're talking about the difference a day makes. It's a whole new tournament. Harika, she's playing very impressive chess in the first two rounds.
Yeah, absolutely. She's someone who, by the way, has a very good routine. I know that she follows a very disciplined schedule during a tournament. She goes for the fitness. She even put some Instagram stories in this tournament as well about working out. And, it really helps to be full of energy even on the last day of the tournament because you still have, how many? 16 rounds to go. And being low on energy might really affect your game quality. So I think her good habits are really helping her in this tournament.
Every time you say there's 16 games to go, I don't believe you, but I know you're right. It's like 18 games of Blitz. It's a marathon, right? You have to conserve that energy. It's almost as long as a cricket match, and especially cricket matches that get postponed. I don't know what match that I'd be referring to, but yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We enjoyed a little bit of that last evening. Robert, you did learn some cricket.
Thanks to you, I learned a lot about cricket. So, I'm not a bowler myself, but maybe one day I could perfect the trade.
Absolutely. So, for now, let's focus on the chess, and we will catch up on the cricket later. Can we have the player screens on the screen?
Yeah.
Player cams on the screen. Yes, there we have Wenjun, and Wenjun plays against Irina in this round. Robert, what do you think of this matchup?
Oh, it's always a good matchup between those two. Wenjun is in great form here in Kolkata. It's her first time playing in India. She is excited about that. And we see that Paulina, she won the bronze medal in the Women's World Blitz Championship back in 2022. She takes on Anna Ushenina. That should be a good match. Anna just won the game with black. Here she gets the white pieces. So all of these matchups, Humpy with white, this is, I think, a big game for Humpy. If she can win and get some momentum going, I feel like she had that in the Rapid, 3 wins in a row. She'll need to take that into the Blitz.
Yeah, absolutely. I think also, that's Savita on the board against Nino. Savita is almost taking a nap.
She's meditating, right? Isn't that what you said? The advice you gave?
Yeah. Yes, I think she might be pretending to meditate, even that's something you can do. But yeah, she needs the energy. She needs the energy for Blitz. Don't you think people who don't play chess don't realize how much energy you lose even while playing Blitz? I mean, I've played like 22 rounds of Blitz in a day and I've felt so exhausted the next day.
And it's the thing, the games are shorter, but there are so many of them. So there's so many different positions you have to calculate. While a classical game of chess that lasts 8 hours long, which we've had as professional players, that's very tiring. But at least you're focusing on the same thing over and over again. You don't have to quickly switch gears. Oh, that game I just played with the queen sacrifice. Now I'm in a position where it's a small maneuvers. Oh, wait, that next game, suddenly there's my king is under attack. It just gets really wild, and you have to recall everything in the moment.
Yeah, it's not good for your heart. But I think people who manage to stay in the present moment can really be better at Blitz than the ones who don't, because you don't really tend to ruminate. And yes, we have kickoff. There is whom do we have on the screen? Savita is playing Harika, but do you want to focus on Humpy's game against Vantika? Maybe?
Sure. Let's go to Humpy's game. We haven't seen her blitz chess just yet. Harika is in the lead with 2 out of 2, and Savita has 1.5. But it's a long event, so early leaders don't necessarily mean that they can maintain the pace. But of course, we hope that they can. But not everyone will be able to. Someone has to lose in the chess game.
Yeah, absolutely. And there we have Vantika playing her pet King's Indian against Humpy's G3 system of the D4. And look at Humpy. She plays E3, very solid, not going E4, not taking the pawn on C5, not even going T5, and knight to E2. So Humpy, I think, is trying to, just get into the groove. She's not really making too many decisions in the opening and wants to play the middle game and the end game. And the end game does suit her. She had a great end games in the rapid section. We saw that. So, yeah, I think, black takes on D4, and maybe next is rook C8. Oh, I was expecting queen to C8, attacking the pawn on H3, but king H2. What do you think of this position, Robert?
Just like I keep saying in many of these positions that have the D6 and G6 pawns, you have to control the pawn breaks. It's really important. You need plans of your own. A6 indicates to me that at some moment, Vantika would love to play B5. Not so easy. I see 2 white pieces aimed at that square. So that is what Humpy is trying to do. She is trying to be controlled. She is playing every single move with purpose. All of her pieces, every single one, is defended in this position. So that's a great news for her, and it makes Black's plans difficult to execute.
Mm-hmm. And what about White? Is she going rook c1 next, or queen to d2? What are
all of the above?
She's
going to do all of it. And look at knight a5. It's trying to stop the quiet play. Like, I want b5. My bishop defends the square. So do we need to stop it? That's the big question for White. I think the answer should probably be yes. But perhaps if you play b5, I play c5, and I just push through.
Wow, c5 is a nice move. I didn't consider that because it's unusual. The bishop is on g7 and my rook is on a1, but the knight on c3 is well defended, so we don't need to bother. Can we quickly look at Harika's board, because she is leading the tournament. She's playing against Savita Shri with the black pieces.
And Savita with 1.5 out of 2, a great start for her. We see a Sicilian. I keep saying it, I love the bishop here, but I know Vichy and many Indian players love the knights.
Yeah, of course. I mean, and especially I've heard a lot in your Blitz commentaries, especially, that the knights are preferred to the bishops when it comes to Blitz games, because there's just more tactical possibilities with the knights.
Easy to miss a fork in Blitz, and that happens all the time. Of all the commentary I've done, you see top players just miss a simple fork because it's hard to find them all in time trouble. But knight e7, this is a great decision by Harika. The pawn on c3. When this knight is here, the knight can't go forward, so let's go back to get rid of White's best piece. It feels to me, look, if the clocks are accurate, I mean, Harika is just cruising, and Savita in huge time trouble.
Yeah, I'm very surprised, because this is a normal Kalashnikov position. Was it no, it's a Sveshnikov. It was a Sveshnikov, but it's quite a normal position. Why did not make any big decisions so far? And it doesn't make sense for her to have taken so much time. Bishop g4 has been played, okay, and maybe bishop takes, queen takes, but then you allow knight takes. Oh, first knight e7, because I was not happy with the fact that you allow knight takes and pawn takes, and you want a piece on d5, not a pawn.
Right. And here I think bishop takes e7 is best, because when the queen takes this bishop, then d5. We get to open up the board for our bishop. I think this would be the best decision, but it is hard to capture backwards. That's one of the things that I myself struggle with. Much easier to recommend during commentary, a bishop retreating capture.
Yeah, but probably Harika will anyway find it. She has 2 minutes on the clock, and d5, once you spot it, you want to play it. What do you do for bishop e7, queen g4, d5, and rook d1? Do you even push d4?
I would, keep going. Why not? I can push that pawn up the board. White is underdeveloped. She instead, I think, plays the smarter choice with the queen takes on e7. But now d5 is hard to play. If this knight gets to d5, White is strategically almost winning. But that takes a while. Knight a3, knight c2, knight b4. You can just tell by the way I'm saying it. And it's the start. You need to develop it anyway. Bring a rook to d1. I actually suddenly really like White's position.
You do?
Yeah.
Because you have hopes for the knight to reach d5?
I just control the pawn break there. And now if you take with the pawn, this king, even though you're pushing your pawns at the board, your king feels less safe.
And now f4 might be a threat because the queen on e7 will be hanging after bishop takes, rook takes, pawn takes, and queen e7. So rook e8 or... oh, king h8 was played, but white did not play f4. She played rook to d1. Maybe black will simply not take and go back bishop f6. So rook d1, rook g8 on the board, and f4 will be met. Oh, f4 is not being considered by white.
It was just played. As soon as you say it's not considered, it certainly was. F4 is a fantastic move. You've been suggesting it, and it's one of these moves that's always meant to have in the back of your mind, but you have to wait for the right moment. And now that black was ready to double up rooks and start an attack, here's the strike. If you take on f4, as you keep saying, we trade queens. You take on f4, black's pawn structure is terrible.
Yeah, absolutely. And if the bishop moves, we take on e5, and then we take the pawn on f5 for free. Oh, so this is difficult for Harika, no?
It certainly is. So she decides that maybe the end game isn't so terrible, and she does what all strong players do. Gives up material instead of defending passively, goes for the active plan of rook e2. I love that decision from Harika.
You know, I just got the news that Harika in fact leads Savita 2-0 in the Blitz in the Tata Steel, which was played last year. So she might be very confident going into this game, but according to the position, it's white who's pressing and black needs to defend.
Yeah, this is the pawn structure. All of these isolated pawns. Knight c2 played by Savita, and I like what she's doing. She wants to meet rook e2 with knight d4. Now, you get active, I can do the same. What was this knight doing on a3? Nothing. Look at the knight gallop into the position, and by the way, this king has no escape scores. Watch out for a back rank checkmate for both sides.
Oh, absolutely. Knight f5, bishop is hanging. Bishop f8 might be the only move to keep the d6 pawn. Bishop g5, but then rook g4 and you pick up d6.
And h4 with tempo to get the white king some breathing room. As you mentioned, d6 is hanging in two different ways. I'm starting to like the position.
Rook d6 might be a back rank checkmate.
I want to play h4 first and then take the pawn. Don't worry. I have blundered back rank checkmate, so you should be worried, honestly.
h6, h4, and now the h6 pawn will also be captured after bishop f6.
Oh, it's turning.
I'm not at all happy with h6, and neither will be Harika.
She's losing a pawn. So rook takes h6 is a free pawn. You can go back to g6 at any moment if you need to run away with your rook, but that does invite the king out to f7. Not the easiest move to go for. She takes on d6, and if king g7, the rook is not going to be trapped. The knight can always retreat.
It's a great point. And rook a2 might be played, but can we simply play rook d3? Oh no, then actually white also needs to be careful with her king, but bishop c3, rook d5. And now is there any tactic in the air with rook f1? Oh my god, it just feels so wrong to play like this, but black is not getting checkmated, right?
And black is kind of close to delivering a checkmate towards the white king. Thankfully for Savita, her king can run away. Oh, she gives up her rook. That definitely was a mistake. She thought she was getting checkmated. She thought she was getting checkmated. Now I think she is very likely to lose this game because she's losing all of her pawns as well.
This is turned around suddenly. Great counterplay by Harika, spotting that she's not getting checkmated and threatening white as well. And rook d2, a good move, because if rooks are exchanged, this is winning on the spot.
A great move. I saw her not just make the move, but Savita, she grabbed it and screwed the rook into h5 because she's going rook g5 check, saving her rook with a pawn, then taking this queenside pawn, and with limited pawns on the board, that gives her a good chance to survive.
Oh. Knight e4 might not be the best decision because you'd simply pick up the rook and then you move the other one.
Yes, it was a fork of rooks, but check saves the rook. We see a trade, and then the problem is this a4 pawn exists, and not for long, actually.
Right, and rook a4, knight d6, and b5. b5 maybe.
Just push him. As long, be careful, g6.
King g8. We have king g8. That's probably the only move.
That's why the rook went down to a1, is that if the king goes up to f7, there is this check to get it out of there. But this white king is kind of close to this pawn.
Yeah, this could be a draw if black is not careful. I mean, if we can pick up the a6 pawn, rook b1 a nice move because a5, knight e4, and a4 simply.
Just push it. And you can move your rook even to b8 because you can't take. Great move from Harika. You can't take because this check wins the knight over here, and she's trying desperately, but the pawn's too fast.
Yeah.
to
And
win.
8, yes, absolutely. She has won the game. 3 out of 3 for Harika Dronawali.
Just
What a player.
phenomenal chess from her. By the way, it looks like Polina Shuvalova has beaten Anna Ushenina. Divya Deshmukh gets her first win over Nino Batsiashvili, and Wenjun beats Irina Krush. So we've had many decisive results in this round.
Oh, this has been a fantastic round. Do you want to go over one of the games before we take a quick break, Robert?
Sure, which the games catches your eye the most?
I definitely want to have a look at Divya's game because it's her first win in the tournament against Nino.
Oh. What a final
Quite
position.
pretty.
I see. I didn't actually look at the game. You had some insider knowledge. That's a pretty brutal finish.
Yeah, let's see how that happened. I mean, wow, just wow. Knight. So this is a Nimzo, and with e3, bishop b7, bishop d3, all normal.
Yes. And this all looks very... See, I wouldn't expect that 20 moves later, the checkmate we saw would happen from this position.
Knight e5. Usually, White's play is quite easy in the bishop d3 Nimzo because bishop e1, bishop d2, bishop e1, bishop h4. It's an easy plan, f4, g4, push the pawns in the king side. I'm curious how black checkmated White.
Yeah, this looks like what Wenjun did against Anna Ushenina yesterday. So we see a swap on e5.
Oh, maybe d into e5 is not the best idea. Maybe you have to take with the f pawn because, you weaken the diagonal a7 g1 after d4, d5, and also d4 becomes possible, and the bishop on b7 will come alive.
Yeah, and even here, knight e4, it's a fighting position for sure, and f6 later for black. So maybe this g4 idea, it looks very promising, but if you're able to swap on e5, it's not as scary as it initially looks. And suddenly, a5, what a move. I mean, I wouldn't even look in that direction, but she says, let's get your bishop off the board. This bishop on c1 is a terrible piece.
Yeah, the bishop had to be on h4 already. It's still on c1. She never bothered to develop it.
And so we see the bishop come to a6 and f5? That move shocks me. It's such a fighting move. It's a creative move.
It's very creative. That's a nice way to put it because we take on f6 en passant with either of the pawns and it opens a g file. And you can attack from the g file now.
But it looks like she did it so she could win this pawn on c4 as her queen protects the knight. So, of course, there are going to be some mistakes in Blitz chess. That's inevitable, but black took over at this point. I mean, the knight on e4 is defended. The g file is not really helpful for white. Queen takes a3. There was queen takes e4. That probably still would have been good, but I like c5 and just rook d2.
This is a massacre.
It really is.
This is very, very... this is nice to watch, but tough to be white in this position. Queen e3, and she actually allowed checkmate. That's very sporting. That's really sporting of Nino and Divya, her first win in the tournament.
Yeah, what a finish to this game. And Divya Deshmukh, she gets 1 out of 3 now in the Blitz. And so 15 games to go.
Yes, 15 games to go. Stay with us. We will not cover all of them today. We will only have 9 games today, and the rest 9 are tomorrow. These are the results of round 3. Divya Deshmukh beat Nino Batsiashvili with the black pieces. Harika won against Savita Shri, a game we covered. Humpy drew against Vantika. Not a great result for Humpy, but good for Vantika. She got her first draw in the tournament. And then we have Wenjun winning against Irina Krush, and Anna Ushenina lost to Polina Shuvalova with the white pieces. So these are the standings for now.
Yes, we see that alone at the top is Harika, but just like in the rapid, Wenjun, she may not be in first place just yet, but she's right there in second, and Polina Shuvalova 2 out of 3, a good start for her. So it's a huge number of players, fighting for the top spots, but some players off to the hot starts, others will need to catch up.
Absolutely, and we will be with them while they try to do that, but for now we are going on a short break because there's not much time to take a break, so we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back to Tata Steel Chess India. We have 3 rounds of Blitz in the books, 6 more games of Blitz today. Soumya, we have seen Harika Dronavali get out to a blazing hot start, 3 out of 3. I think India must be very excited for her.
Absolutely. I mean, she actually is showing the class that she actually has. She was not able to find her form in the rapid, but she got back a little bit towards the end, and now she's really showing her true class. I also see her preparing before the games a little bit every day. I haven't mentioned it so far, but in the Blitz she doesn't get that time, and maybe she simply uses it to relax. There's absolutely no time, Robert, between the rounds.
You get a few minutes just to leave your board, go to the lounge, then come right back, maybe grab some refreshments. But that's the thing about Blitz chess is you have to be on it every single game, because if you have a lapse, suddenly you lose a game, and that could start a bad streak. But for Harika, a great start, 3 out of 3, and Wenjun, 2.5 out of 3. She's doing well, and Polina Shuvalova, 2 out of 3. So those 3 are near the top, but 15 rounds of Blitz to go.
Absolutely. It could be anybody's tournament. There we have Harika on the screen playing against Vantika. No, that's Wenjun. Yeah, I was confused. It looked like Harika to me, but then I realized it's Wenjun. And of course, Wenjun plays with the black pieces. We will actually have a look at this game in this round, because Wenjun is having a great tournament. It's just that others are doing even better than her. I mean, Divya did so well in the rapids, and the games have started. So Vantika plays d4 with white, and Wenjun has not yet responded.
We see them. The moves are going to come in quick, and the board will catch up with their moves. But that's a Catalan, and an open Catalan. This would make the likes of Vladimir Kramnik proud. This is a throwback if I've seen one. And they're Queen A4, Knight E5 types of positions. And this is a good opening to choose in Blitz chess, I would say.
Yeah, this is a fighting opening. DC5, and now Black can play Bishop to C5 as well as Knight to D4. There are 2 moves here. Knight D4, a sneaky move, right? Because you allow Queen takes C4, Bishop C5 has been played, and Bishop E7, a more solid approach by Black, and Knight to C3. Actually, Vantika only plays the Catalan against the QGD, and Wenjun loves to play the open Catalan. So they both are in their repertoire, and we will see we'll see a really solid game.
Yeah, it's actually surprising. It looked like it would be a very energetic game. Now we see a symmetrical pawn structure. E4 was just pushed. If white can play E5 at the right moment, not now, that is not the correct moment, because the queen is loose on C4. Rooks win showdowns with queens, but she's trying to gain some space in the center, as this bishop on D7 is not a very good one. So I think that white is probably slightly better, but still early stages.
Yeah, I think white simply goes back to E2 with her queen and go for the E5 idea, Robert, that you were pointing out. Is the bishop is a spot of bother for Black, and Queen A5, maybe Queen H5 next, and you want to play on the king side, bring your knight to E5 to G4, who knows?
That would be some fun chess indeed. And it looks like Vantika feels so comfortable in this opening. She's spending no time at all. She has a big lead on the clock against Women's World Champion Wenjun. So we see the move Rook D8 played. Good decision. Just bring her rook to the center. She can play Bishop E8 next, the standard plan. Any other games are catching your eye?
Absolutely. Let's go to Shuvalova's game. We haven't had a look at her game so far in this tournament. She's playing against Konero Humpy with the white pieces, and it's a King's Indian type of position. What would you call it, Robert?
Bringing that board up here. It's like a Sicilian, Spanish, King's Indian all mixed together, where not a single piece has been traded. But I'm looking at the clocks, and if those are accurate, Polina has almost as much time as she started with.
Right, and she plays a lot of Blitz, as we were discussing on Chess.com, on OTB as well. Humpy, on the other hand, hasn't played much online, and she's a great Blitz player. She won the silver in the World Blitz Championship. This position I really like for Humpy, because when she was younger, upcoming player, she used to only play the perk and modern defense, these kind of setups, and it's so much in her style to play the slow and steady setups with a small pawn break. D5 could happen any moment for Black.
Yeah, D5 right now. Maybe you take this way. I can't take with a C pawn because D6 was loose. That's why she went Bishop F8. But she could have taken with the E pawn and played D5 and broken open the position. So Apparently the engine does not like that last move. There must be some tactic.
Pawn
On
takes
E4?
and e4 is hanging. E takes d4 now?
That looks like a free pawn. Yeah.
Yes.
There's too many black pieces are staring right towards the center. And Polina made that move bishop f1 quickly.
And Humpy's taking her time, so she does spot that there is something wrong with this move.
Yeah, there's clearly something wrong. It's a free pawn in the center, one of these going down, but maybe there's a justification that after pawn takes, I don't know how you defend this e4 pawn, so I'm trying to figure out. But black's kingside does feel a little bit loose.
Yes, but there are no pieces to attack it. I mean, the bishop just went back to f1. It was doing great on d3, looking at g6 in case we get an e5 in. But I think black should take on d4 here. Humpy taking her time. She does take on d4. So e takes, c takes on the board. And maybe what she's thinking about is whether to take with the knight or the bishop on e4.
It's a big question. Oops, sorry, just refresh the page there. Wait, is the pawn
The
on
pawn on
c6?
c6?
That's maybe what happened. We're getting
We got
the DGT board. The pawn was between the two squares.
Right. Okay, then that
Makes
changes.
that makes a huge difference. And that sometimes happens with the boards because when you put a piece and it's between the two squares, it doesn't always know which one to register. So we see that this looks much more normal. Bishop f1 was a strange move in the other position.
Yes.
Here it seems like it's perfectly okay for white.
But then Humpy's clock is a real concern. I mean, she took such a long time to take on d5 and now she's down to 30 seconds.
The good news, though, is if this pawn trade happens, she can then trade queens. It's a pre-movable decision, and it's a simpler game. And we saw her play a very nice position from black in an endgame against Polina, and I love this decision from Shuvalova. She says, no queen trade for you. It's going to remain complicated.
Yeah, I mean, she wants to stay in the endgame and make Humpy think as much as possible and use the time advantage on the clock. E takes, pawn takes, now queen takes b3 is quite natural. Maybe we are getting the transmission a little late because there's no reason to think in this position.
There could be a reason to go for the checkmate.
Wow.
The king can go up to h7, but there might still be attacking chances with like a knight g5. I don't think it works, and she probably agreed on that. But yeah, it also is possible that the transmission is slightly delayed.
And a5 and b5. Now the f6 pawn, can it be defended or is black picking it up for free?
Black looks like she's picking up that pawn. That could turn the game in black's favor. The clock still remains a worry, but at 20 seconds, she should have enough time to figure out at least her next bunch of moves.
Yeah, so queen d6 on the board and both the players less than 1 minute on the clock. Knight e5 looks like a good move here, Robert. Like queen f6 and maybe knight g4.
Something like that is probably necessary, but black does look like she can go into a little turtle shell and defend her weak squares. Is something happening in the Wenjun game against Vantiga that we started with?
It's quite equal. We can have a look at that, but they have entered a endgame where it could be anybody's game, to be honest. Queen g5,
Okay.
and we have rook e5. No, rook e5 will be met with rook takes, knight takes. Yes, she does go for it.
She wants that f6 square. I think your intuition is absolutely correct here. The queen will be dragged back to d1 after a rook trade as well, but it's starting to look a little bit scary for black. It's not about the extra pawn just yet. The extra pawn in the endgame would be winning, but right now it looks scary.
And the bishop on b7, if we get queen to d7 right now, it's not possible after queen d1 because knight is on f8. But let's say knight h7, and then we play queen d7, and how do we save the bishop on b7?
Yeah, I think we're going to have to allow the knight into f6. Maybe bishop c8 at some moment. That's a great move, queen e7. She's covering up all of the squares that you could possibly infiltrate to, and so bishop c8 looks next, and don't count this pawn out. It's the little pawn that could become a new queen.
So it's the kind of position, if black manages to defend white's threats against her king, she might be better because the b pawn is a clear passer.
Yes, black will just win in some of these endgames. Knight e6, good attacking move all of a sudden, and black can play queen d8. Why don't we trade queens and go for a queen c5 check to d4?
I like the move because why not keep the queens, because queen c5 is also coming in. Oh, but now it could be anybody's game after e5 and queen takes e5 and knight e8.
8 check, the king comes back, the knight goes to d6. This bishop is loose over here.
Bishop to a1. king h2 and queen e5 back, king h1. Humpy has no time. Let's not forget
Oh,
that.
but she
knight
plays for a win. She could have made a little repetition. She goes for the win. The bishop is loose, and the knight is also hanging.
Wow, this is such an amazing game. King e7, knight b7, knight e2, and there's checkmate on queen a1, queen g1.
It's going to be checkmate right here on g1. That's the
There is
threat.
no way. Is there a way to defend it? Queen d2 check, king c7, and we picked up the knight for free, and black is completely winning. Polina resigns. Humpy picks up her first win.
And with little time on her clock, she still found the best moves. Great game from Humpy. She
I'm
moves
so
to 2 points.
Happy we stuck to this game,
Yeah.
Rob, but I think it was a great game.
It was, yeah, a very fighting game. No draw there. Let's go to the game between Wenjun and Vantika. That looks like an extra pawn for Wenjun. And will Vantika be able to hold this? That's the big question. It doesn't look likely to my eyes because she's going down a second pawn. And it seems like Wenjun's endgame technique will be able to secure her another point.
Wow, Wenjun and her endgame skills cannot be praised enough. King e5. Now, rook a3, very precise. You bring the king even more forward. After rook f8, you go king e4 or king g4. Wow.
Yeah.
And rook a6.
Your king defends one pawn, your rook the other, king g3, pawn g4. The white rook can't stop both these pawns.
So g4, and there is no way to make a draw. Rook g8, maybe rook check first, or do we go king h3? Rook check.
Yeah, now the king h3, as you said, and this g-pawn is going up the board really quickly. Check, king g1, then king g3.
And now g3 and rook h8, king g2 is...
It's winning without this pawn, right? At this
Yeah.
point, you don't even need the second one.
So king f3, rook f2, king e3, rook f6, and rook h8 met with king g2, king h2. It's a... what do you call it? It's a typical maneuvering technique in rook endgames. G2, king e2, and king h1 was also okay.
Yeah, just rook e5 check now.
Right.
So this is going to kick the king away so that the black king can escape, and that will seal the victory once you build a bridge.
Yeah, and the e6 pawn helps
Oh.
because king f1, you simply play rook f5. Nice.
And the
Oh, they're playing until the checkmate, I guess.
the hardest thing for Wenjun there was finding the queen, because she needs to promote the pawn to a queen, but she couldn't find it. And yeah, this is clearly over. Wenjun wins. She moves to 3.5 out of 4, and
Impressive.
well,
Very
impressive game from her. And it looks like Harika drew her game, so that means Wenjun and Harika are now tied for first with 3.5 points.
Wow. So, and what were the other results, Robert? I think Savita lost to Nino. So Nino picking up her first win of the tournament, and Irina Krush drew with Divya, with black. So can we have the standings on the screen?
Well, we know the two co-leaders. That much is clear. We have after Wenjun wins with black. That was a big win for her. Paulina lost to Humpy. Harika drew against Anu Ushenna. Nino beats Savita, so Nino's a big win there with white, and Divya drew against Irina. Wenjun catches up to Harika Janavali. They both will have 3.5 out of 4 heading into the 5th round.
Do you want to go over a game that we missed, Robert? Savita did lose to Nino. Yes, there we have the standings, and Wenjun and Harika are tied, and Humpy is on 2.5. Look
Yeah.
who sneaked in.
Yeah, and actually, if she beats the players in front of her, she has yet to face Harika, then she may be able to catch up as well. And that's good to see. Humpy, after a tough rapid, after 5 rounds in the rapid, she only had 1 point. She already has way more than that in the Blitz.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's have the board on the screen because we have very less time before the next round starts, and maybe we go through one of the games. Nino versus Savita?
Sure. Let's go to Nino Batsishvili. Oh, the final position. She's simply winning a knight with check as well. But we can see how we got here. Nino scoring her first victory, I think, in the Blitz.
Yes, and okay, this is a typical Benoni on the board. Benko, she goes for b5, c takes, and d6. Maybe a6 next, and takes, bishop takes, knight takes, and short castle. It's theory, no? Knight b4, a3, bishop to f5.
Yeah, this rook on a1 is not defended, so this knight was not really under attack. And this move, knight e1, is very important. It covers the c2 square, and it allows white to push to e4 because the bishop is opened up. So I typically like these positions in Blitz. playing from the black side, but then I play them and lose all the time, so then I prefer them from white.
That's a funny way to put it. Also, the knight on e1 does a great job of covering the d3 square after you push e4, which is one of the critical squares in the benko for black. You want to put a knight on d3 after c4 and knight d3. Bishop c8, bishop e3, and now the b4 knight was hanging, so knight goes back.
But this has clearly gone wrong for black. All of the last moves were knight e8, bishop c8, knight back to a6. So it's going in the wrong direction.
So maybe knight b8 and then the picture is complete.
Yeah,
f5.
gets aggressive. Okay, the bishop is back out. This isn't so bad for black, despite the fact that a bunch of these moves were backwards. But it looks like Nino handled everything with precision to this point, just taking control over the open e-file and even bring her repetition. Instead of making it, she takes this pawn c4. So just that, they'd say that's the technique, right? You repeat twice, and then you find your better move.
Yeah, but you have to remember that you repeated twice. I mean, it's difficult to do that in Blitz, but Nino managed, and rook b2, rook to b1, rook to c2, and she's just exchanging the rook with rook c1. So bishop e4, bishop takes, and what next? I think bishop c3?
Wow, that was very
Unexpected.
clever. Yeah, because you take this rook, you have to take the bishop, because if you took the rook, this rook on e1 would have been hanging, and now after the trades, white is ahead by a pawn and has the bishop pair in an open board. This is really nice for Nino.
Yeah, I mean, the king looks super weak. You know, the bishop was required to defend the king on g7 with bishop on g7, but knight to c5, and I mean, black has so many things to worry about. He has the e7 pawn, the a pawn is a passed pawn, and the king is also weak. This is almost like very, very bad for black. Let's see how Savita continued with h4.
Yeah, Nino just goes to break open the king side as well. So she's just going full steam ahead for the attack. I mean, just not stopping. e6, this opens up more diagonals against the black king. h5, opening up the b1, h7. Every move for white has a very clear purpose and an attack. And I think that Savita put up good resistance, but at a certain point, yeah, this is just so painful. You can't do much of anything. And now the king side pawn is hanging. You still have this passer here. No, there's really nothing you can do.
Yeah, I think it was very, very difficult for Savita throughout the game, from start to finish. So well played game by Nino. She must be very happy to get a win in a very difficult tournament so far. But now she might get her mojo back and get some wins in, because this is such a great quality game, Robert. It looks like a classical game.
Yeah, there were really no major issues from her on this game, because even our perfect games, we make a slight error here and there, but this was such a high quality game. She never gave Savita a real chance.
Mm-hmm. And the next matchups are that Nino plays against Anna. So we should cover this game, because we have seen very less of Nino and Anna on the broadcast. And what do you think, Robert? What about the game so far?
It's been great. They've been a lot of fun.
We did ask a poll, right?
We did, yes, about who they thought would win the event. I haven't kept chat open. Sorry, everybody. But I'm saying hi right now. Hello, chat. How are you? Hopefully you're having a good day. But the question was who they thought would win the tournament. And maybe we can get the set poll again. We'll get the results. Yeah. Or maybe we can restart that poll, because now that Harika and Wenjun are tied for first and Humpy is right behind, I would be curious to hear their new thoughts in addition to their initial ones.
It's hard to predict who will actually win the tournament, don't you think?
Because there are, 14 rounds left now?
Yeah. Too many games. But what's your impression so far? Sorry, I didn't...
Oh, no, I think the quality's been very good. We haven't really seen, queen blunders. That will happen in Blitz. No matter who you are, suddenly someone just drops a queen. But we haven't really seen that. We've seen some fine technical displays from the players. I've been really impressed with Harika. I think that Wenjun, we kind of catch her in moments where it's like, oh, she's winning now in a pawn-up endgame. But she just continues to impress. And I think the fact that we're not surprised by her wins just goes to show how strong she is.
Yeah, she's playing with such great class. I mean, even in the rapid, so professional, as we mentioned, making a draw per day and winning 2 games. And here as well, she's always in the race. I mean, in both the tournaments. And her games have been very steady. So impressive. We should cover Anna's game next, and we must have a look at how Irina is doing, Robert. We haven't really had her games on the broadcast either. She's
Yeah.
playing against Vantika in the next round.
Okay, so a good opportunity for those players to go higher up the scoreboard. And I wanted to mention that you spoke to Humpy. You told us about that, how she was happy with the quality of her play, even if the result wasn't what people expect from her. Her quality's been very good. We just saw a nice game from her beating Paulina. So I think that Humpy 2.5 out of 4. It's early stages in the Blitz, but I like the way she's handling herself in her games.
Absolutely. I think lots of people like from the outside only focus on the results, but I think for chess players it's not only about the results, it's also about how you play the game. You have a feeling about your tournament apart from the results, and so I'm happy that Humpy was not too upset about her rapid and she can give her best in the Blitz.
Yeah, I used to ask this question, but then I stopped because everyone had the same answer. Would you rather win a very badly played game where your opponent just blunders like at the end, or would you rather lose a well-played game where you're the one who is pressing and maybe you kind of make a fatal error? And everyone said they'd rather win the game, and I
Yes.
see your face suggesting as much too. But I never get satisfaction from winning bad games.
But the disappointment that you get from losing a great game is far too much to handle.
It's
You're okay with handling that?
well, I just
You're an exception.
but it's one of those things where if you play badly, you're just like I just don't deserve to win, and it's like
No, you always deserve to win.
you always deserve to win.
Yes, every game. You deserve to be lucky.
Okay, I like that attitude.
Yeah,
we
of
do make
course.
our own luck sometimes, that's for sure. But sometimes we play really badly,
It's okay.
like really badly, and then I feel like then you really don't deserve the win that somehow falls into your lap.
No, you must believe that you deserve to win every game, Robert.
I
But
like
then
that.
the problem is the loss hurts a lot too because you believe you deserve to win every game.
And you deserve to lose.
So you don't deserve to lose.
Wait, then what happens when you lose? You didn't deserve that either?
No.
Okay, this sounds. I don't know.
Unless you played very badly.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about the scenario where you played really well
Yeah.
and then you lost.
Yeah.
So that's not something you deserved.
No, I'm not saying you deserve to lose. Of course
Yeah.
not. But what if you play a bad game? You
Yeah,
still
then
deserve
it's
to.
okay.
Okay, I
Then
just
it's
want.
okay.
It sounded like you just always deserve to win. Is
No.
how I was hearing that, and maybe you do. Maybe you always deserve to win.
That will be our next poll.
So you said
So
for
I
the
think the games have not yet begun, Robert.
no, it started probably just right
4:20?
now. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
about to begin, and yeah, we see the first moves are being made by the players there. The game started every 20 minutes, so it's consistent. The first game started at 3 p.m. local. The fourth started at 4 p.m. and the seventh will start at 5 p.m.
It's easy to keep track. So we have kickoff, but we haven't got the live transmission yet. We have Anna playing against Nino. Yes, we have the boards. So can we have the board on the screen? Right, and it's a Catalan. Surprise, surprise.
You say very sarcastically because these two played a very interesting Catalan earlier in the rapid event where I think Nino brought her knight out to c6 before the knight was on e5 and played some b6 line. But here the knight comes out to e5, stopping Black's easy development forward. And I think Nino kept doing this, right? She kept playing a4, knight c6, knight a5 against Wenjun and others.
Yeah, I'm looking at the crowd. I mean, yeah, I know you mentioned it earlier, but I just feel so good to see so many spectators in here today. And in fact, I had many questions coming in from some people on social media if they can actually come and watch the tournament. You actually can. I mean, it's being held in Bhasha Bhavan, and it's, as you can see on the screen, it's a big auditorium. So lots of seats here, and we would really love to have people come and watch the games. So c6 on the board. So how do we develop here? Knight c3, and we don't want to play b3, right?
Probably not just
Because-
because it invites a4.
Yeah. So maybe knight c3 and bishop f4, just play usual chess, but knight f d7, an interesting decision.
It's clever because when you take this on e5, normally the pawn attacks a knight, so it wastes a tempo, so to speak. Here, the knight goes away from f6, so that way when you capture, you don't necessarily have to spend a move. And look at this, the knight back. When you have more space, you keep more pieces on the board. These knights are fighting for the same squares.
Yeah, but I thought you can take the pawn on c4. This was my problem, but I see what White wants to do. She wants to go knight to d2. and attack the pawn, and after b5 it will actually be hanging because you open the bishop's diagonal.
And I think black should play knight b6 to meet this knight d2 move. It also opens up the queen to this d4 pawn. This is getting suddenly kind of tactical. It would look just very calm. And I tend to like these positions from black unless white very quickly grabs this pawn. And then I'm like, all right, I don't really have the play that I wanted.
Yeah, but it's difficult to save it after queen e2. So maybe black goes for c5, the typical break in Catalan. So of course we didn't win the pawn on c4 because pawn takes, and knight c4. But we got the break, and now our bishop will not be as bad as it would have been otherwise.
Yeah, there was actually another option there, e5 instead of c5, which was very interesting to get this bishop out to better squares in the diagonal. But instead, c5, this is principal chess. We also want to look at Irina's game, right?
Absolutely.
She's playing against Vantika, so we are going to come back to this game for sure. But let's give Irina and Vantika our attention, and we will definitely look at this game in a bit. But Irina and Vantika, they have, this opening, Fabiano played it against Wojtaszek, where he gave up his dark squared bishop for a knight on c3.
Yeah.
This is a famous game, and black, according to the engines, is perfectly okay. This goes against every rule that early chess players learned. Every single rule.
Exactly. I mean, even if you saw the Fabi game, why would you want to repeat it?
You probably wouldn't, but it looks like if these clocks are correct, I'm not sure if they are. Arena down to 16 seconds? There's no way that's possible.
Yeah, probably there's some error, but we will stick to this game, so we'll find out because the clocks will get corrected. Knight to e5. Maybe it was a shock for Irina that black took on c3 and rook e2 is impossible. I'm sure she played bishop to e2, not rook e2.
Aha, okay, the knight went to c5, not e5. So some of these moves are not on the right squares, but we have seen the knight go to c5, not to e5. The other knight can join the party later via e5, but then the bishop will slide back to e2.
And the game has changed so quickly. Oh, she took on c5, pawn takes, and now queen c3, I get it now, and rook e6, and maybe, but knight f3 is always in the air, no?
Yeah, you can always take on f3, but that helps white, I believe, because trading queens makes her problems not so severe. And also, you want this knight on d4. I would rather keep your pawn structure and your bishop. This is a bad bishop. It's staring into your own pieces, so I'd rather get my knight to d4 than I'm strategically pretty much winning. Play rook e8, and then knight c6, knight d4.
That's a great point, actually, because you would be tempted to take the bishop and spoil white's pawn structure, but instead, the knight is so powerful, and it has even more powerful squares to get to, the d4 square. So rook a8, Vantika doing everything right with knight c6 and knight d4 coming in.
And I feel like, based on how quickly Irina is playing, she really does only have seconds on the clock. So can't really do anything active, and every move for Vantika gaining a little bit space, we could even see more pawn pushes.
Yeah, I am shocked that she has only 3 seconds left, and gaining only 2 seconds per move. This could be Vantika's first win.
Game over.
H2 and game over.
Threatens mate, and Irina extends her hand. Vantika with a crushing victory.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, she must be so relieved. I mean, she has, how many, 1.5 minutes after the game ended and did everything right. It's one of those games where you did everything right, Robert. I mean, she must be very happy. Bishop c3 is an unusual move to play, but she believed in herself and believed that she deserved to win, and she got it.
And we keep talking about the time management. This was, unfortunately for Irina, not a good game by her. The time management was not there. But let's go back to Anna against Nino, right? That's the game we were looking at, or should we look elsewhere?
I do want to have a look at Savita's game against Divya, because Savita has a piece, but Divya has so many pawns instead. There is a queen d4 on the move, a queen at 6. How many pawns does black have?
4 pawns for the bishop. I don't think I would take that pawn necessarily. I know that would make it 3 pawns for the bishop, but it would make the king more open. Queen takes a5, c7 is loose, and the reason why we're picking these pawns, and okay, queen takes c7 just looks crushing, is that the b file where the white king is stays closed, and this bishop can always drop back.
Oh, queen b4. She doesn't take...
She wants the cheapo.
Yeah, but now we don't win either of the pawns.
A bit of a strange decision, right?
Yeah.
The c7 pawn could have been captured. Now black's pawns, don't count those out. What if you start throwing them all up the board?
Yeah, maybe queen b4 was a huge error, because f5, king is out of that pin, rook e1 on the board. Did she play queen c5?
No, I
No.
think
Queen f6 and now queen b7?
Queen b7
Finally?
is definitely possible. Maybe there is
Yes,
queen b6 check. I'm not sure
Queen
if
b6.
black is surviving that, but if we trade queens over here and then all three of these pawns start going, it's anybody's game.
Yeah, this is just so hard to assess. And queen b2, rook f6, rook e6 was possible, but then queen d1 was the problem. So she plays a4 and f4, rook e6. Oh, this is now in Savita's favor because nothing can move. Queen e5, queen f8, queen c7.
No, this is just great play from Savita. Rook e7 check, cuts the queen off from the rook, and that wins her the rook on f6. Oh, she trades instead, and now
What?
it's really anybody's game. White should be better, but with an open king and this pass pawn f3, things can go wrong.
This could really be anybody's game with such less time. G4, G5, G3 coming in. Oh.
Uh-oh, this is looking dangerous here. Here goes the a pawn, but here goes the g pawn.
And a6 will be met with
G3.
G3.
Okay, so but queen a4 check, and you could pick up this pass pawn.
Queen b4. It must be a4.
No, she wants maybe if a6, queen a5 check, picking up the bishop. Is that what she's going for? Okay, she grabbed a pawn
Okay,
clearly.
we are not getting the live transmission.
It will come in, but first, I mean, the players... Oh, and you see that? The dragging of the piece, it confuses the DGT boards. But, yeah, the players are moving very quickly. Hopefully, the board catches up to them. But, yeah, they're just going now.
Yeah, it's... Do you think we should go to Anna's game because there and come back to this one because we are not getting the live?
Even if we're not getting the moves, I think that, maybe we can just focus on the players. They're just clearly playing speedy chess, and I have no idea who's better because the board won't tell us.
Maybe we can have a closer look at the player camps. Oh, Divya won the game.
Or was it a draw? Because it looked like she was moving her queen back and forth, but it's possible Divya, in fact, won. We will update this board as soon as we can, but I guess, we could go elsewhere if you...
Yeah, it was a draw, Robert. You're right. Yes.
Yeah. And Humpy beat Hariko. I can't believe we didn't even look at that game once, but Humpy wins against Harika.
Oh, this is crucial. We must have a look at this game, but Anna Ushanina is still playing Nino, but they agreed to a draw, right?
Yeah,
right?
that's not still playing, unless, they're just moving their kings around.
Yes.
Officially, it is a draw. So, Wenjun loses to Paulina, and Humpy beats Harika. So, actually, the games at the top of the standings we didn't even get to look at, but those were some big results.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go have a look at how Humpy beat Harika because this is so crucial for the standings. Humpy moves to 3.5 points out of 5.
Yes, and Harika is still at 3.5 points. So, Humpy's actually tied for first place now with these last two wins.
Yeah, d4, g6, and I have a feeling that Harika has played this exact... Yeah, okay, now it's a King's Indian, so bishop g7, short castle, knight to c3 and d6. Knight f3, knight b7, and short castle e5.
It's all theory at this point, and h3 is this very quiet system. Finally, white pushes the pawn to e4. This pawn is defended enough times. The bishop has opened up to its e4 square and rook e1. So all of this has been played many, many, many times, and I feel like white just has a bit more space. I am preferential for the white pieces.
But I always like playing the King's Indian with black, so there are always so many ideas. Now a5 is normal. I guess she did do that because you want to prevent white from playing b4. So a5 and king h2, c6. Again, you want to get d5 if possible, or b5 is not possible really. So d5 is the break. Bishop f4 and bishop to f8. Right, because d6 was hanging, and maybe knight h5 next.
Yes, to kick the bishop away. d5 just has too much cover from white's pieces, 4 of them staring at that square. So we do see the knight go back to c2. That make that 5 pieces aiming at d5, and also the d6 pawn is loose. And, okay, have to push the h pawn now. No knight h5 anymore.
Yeah, I think queen d2 was a nice move, forcing h5, and now rook d1. d6 is attacked. Maybe queen b6 is the only move here, because bishop d6, but then you still have bishop takes c5 after rook d8.
But I think black would have been very happy to get the bishop pair here. Rook d8, bishop takes c5.
And take with the bishop.
Take with the bishop, exactly. And f2 would fall, but I think what Harika was really worried about is just pawn push to e5, defending the bishop this way. And if you take and give me a passed pawn, I think Humpy would have been very happy. So we did see move h4 played instead, creating chaos on the king side, and then a4, both sides of the board. And okay, the reason why d6 isn't hanging so quickly is c4 is loose. This is a really messy affair.
Very messy, and let's see how it continued. Knight to c5, of course, and pawn takes, and bishop takes on d6 is possible now, right?
Possible and played, yeah. She just takes this pawn, and after the trade of pieces, queen a5. This pawn on c6 was hanging, this knight on c5 was hanging, and this knight on f6 is also loose. So it's not easy for black to start stealing pawns, and that apparently was a mistake.
Because you can take on c3, and then if I take on f6, you take on c2, but then I still take on c5. So why is it a mistake?
That's exactly what happened, but maybe there was some kind of rook d8 almost traps the queen. It does have the c6 square, so this is hard to recognize of why this is a mistake, but it looks like after queen takes c3, if you take on c5 over here, you take on d1,
right,
and the rook is loose, so you can't take the knight. That is a very distant plan.
Right, and it also depends on how much time black had. Black did have a lot of time here. Can you see the time here, Robert? Is this the time in the end of the game?
I think that was the time at the moment she played it, so she did have plenty of time. But even still, it takes there's so many possibilities in a game of chess that it can hardly falter. And maybe she was playing to flag Humpy, but clearly that didn't work.
Yeah, that can backfire sometimes. Rook a8 now. Wow, so rook e6 is possible, and then queen e7. Oops.
And Humpy found it. So in her own time trouble, she did not have much time. If pawn takes e6, queen e7, that is checkmate by force. The rook is also loose, even if you could stop the checkmate somehow with your queen. You can't. That would be game over. So it's a free piece, and I think from there it was a smooth conversion for Humpy, just making sure that she doesn't get in any trouble, pushing her pawns up the board, and okay, that's a nice checkmate at the end. As an instant replay, rook d4, queen g3 check, hoping that after rook takes, you would take here, and maybe we have some chances to make a draw, but no chance after this direct checkmate on g7.
Yeah, fantastic game by Humpy. She made only one mistake somewhere around the point of queen a5, and Harika had that one chance, but she let it slip, and then she had absolutely no chance to come back.
And that's the nature of Blitz. If you don't make the most of your one chance, you may not get a second against such a strong player. And while we have a few more minutes remaining, I think we should look how Polina Shuvalova did beat Women's World Champion Wenjun. And, wow, black won in this position. There must have been more moves because it says O-1. Maybe it was a loss on time. We'll have to get confirmation of it. But this position is anybody's game, and actually this is checkmate in one threatened, but it was black's move.
She probably lost on time. That's the only explanation, because you can always move the bishop.
Right. So black won. So it's black's turn and black won, which means probably it was a win on the clock, I would imagine, because this is just...
Yeah.
We'll have to maybe ask and get confirmation, because yeah, this is another one of those games like when Humpy lost to Vantika. It seemed that the position was just normal and a fight. And here is one of those, and that's what happens in Blitz chess. Sometimes you don't hit your clock by the time the final seconds tick away, and you lose on time. But good result for Polina.
Meanwhile, we do have these are the results on the screen. Divya drew a very difficult game against Savita Shri. Nino Batsiashvili also drew against Anna. We didn't get to look at that game at all. Humpy won against Harika, the top two Indian players fighting it out there in a very complicated King's Indian game. Wenjun lost to Polina, not yet sure if it was on time or not. Irina Krush also lost to Vantika, so Vantika getting her first win.
Yeah, we saw that game with the queen coming into h2 at the end, and for Vantika just the lead on the clock and the dark square control. But we have a three-way tie, and I think fans will be very happy to see the name at the top.
Wow.
Humpy Koneru in first place tie with Harika and Wenjun 3.5 points. And Polina, we should never count her out. She's in striking distance with 3 out of 5 after beating Wenjun.
Yeah, this is exactly what the fans might have expected before the rapid event started, but now they get to see it in the Blitz. It's definitely good news. We also have another good news, Robert. We have the poll results out, and the chat thinks that 50% of the chat thinks that Wenjun is going to win the tournament. 26%. Okay, first let's get to Harika. 16% thinks that Harika is going to win, 7% thinks Humpy, and 26% of the chat thinks someone else.
That is a high number for somebody else, because I
Yes.
think the three of them have, and with Paulina, I would say they have great chances, but I wouldn't give 26% to Paulina just based on the standings thus far and the level that we've seen from the top three. But it's good to know that the fans, they're spreading the love and support.
Absolutely, to someone else. And who do you think, Robert, will be the winner? If I can get your predictions.
It's 5 rounds in. I mean, look at this match we're about to see: Harika versus Wenjun. The winner of this game, if there is one, that could allow them to separate themselves from each other because they are tied for first heading into the round. Humpy just played a really nice game against Harika. There was that one moment that's always going to happen in chess where we can criticize that, but Harika had an advantage on move 22, for one turn, and it was hard to figure out. So I think that for Harika, this is a big rebound game. Same thing with Wenjun. That's her first loss of the entire event. She's the only person who had not lost a game. She lost 0 in the rapid, but she just lost the Blitz game.
Exactly, and we still haven't got confirmation yet about how that loss happened. So it's probably on time, but she looks like such a composed person, Robert. I see her in the hotel as well sometimes, and she's so calm and quiet and doing her own thing. She's one of those players you're sure will bounce back. And in fact, Hari told me that even in the match where he was seconding her, he said that she in fact got stronger in the second half and became even more confident. So they felt more confident to give her options rather than make her stick to one line.
Yeah, well, she did clearly get stronger in the second half because she was trailing in the match and then ended up winning it. But we see this game between Harika and Wenjun, they're off, and in true Harika style, starting with knight f3, and we're getting this lovely little semi-tirage.
Semi-Tarash, definitely Wenjun's favorite opening. So we actually saw this exact position in the rapid as well. But okay, queen d8, king takes, pawn takes, and knight g5, bishop e6. Is this called the Dubov line?
I don't know what it's called, but I know that Humpy just played this against Wenjun in their game in the Blitz. So we saw the bishop come out. So they're repeating the line.
Right, and knight c6, long castle, king e8 was played, king e7 was played, and then the black king went to f7. Okay, king e8 makes more sense because knight e4 was hanging. So bishop f6, pawn takes, knight e4 was the game in Wenjun versus Humpy, right?
Yeah, though the king was on e7 there, so it's slight differences in these positions. Actually, that king then ended up going to f7 after that, but Harika slowing down for the first time all game, and Wenjun has 11 seconds more than she started with.
Right, bishop b5. Maybe this is the difference, that when the king is on e8, you can actually pin the knight and worsen pawns, the black's pawn structure even further. With bishop c6, so rook c8, you don't want to take on c6 with the pawn. So rook e1 with tempo, and now you don't even need to take on f6. You can simply take on e4 with the knight and enjoy a great pawn structure.
Yeah, big difference. If you can take on e4 without giving up your dark square bishop, you're very, very happy to try to exert pressure against e6 later in the game with your light square bishop.
Okay, that's great news for Harika fans, because it seems like she will have a small advantage in the end game. Bishop takes, rook, she takes on c6. That's surprising. Okay, so they actually reached a similar end game in Humpy Wenjun as well, except for they had the light squared bishop on the board.
Yeah, that was a surprising decision for sure, giving up your bishop's advantage. Not only black has a bishop, but these pawns are a little looser. So that's what Harika is going for. Her rook is active on e4. Her rook's on an open file on the d line. So she does have chances, but I think Wenjun has seen the worst go by.
Yeah, absolutely. We also should look at some other games before we come back to this one again. Do we look at Anna's game against Savita Shri? Anna is playing black.
Okay, let's look at that game. So Savita with the white pieces. And, we have a double pawns in the center for Anna here. But this is usually good news for Sicilian players because that means their bishop has more scope instead of sitting behind a pawn on d6.
Right, the e5 pawn actually controls the d4 square, so the knight cannot come back to the center, and the e6 pawn controls the d5 square. So black has a free hand to go on with their own plans. What does black play here? A6, b5?
There are many options for black. I would start probably by bringing my rook towards the center. Eventually, I'll likely bring my queen out from the b8 square. But white might try to strike with c5. So white wants to gain space. I love for black that f4 is not available. With a pawn on d6, white gets a possibility to attack on the king side. Here you don't really want to play f4 because black will take and isolate the e4 pawn. So I think that queen c7 makes perfect sense as a starting move. Bishop c6, rook to d8. These types of maneuvers are very commonplace.
Right, and bishop to c3. It looks like Savita is not feeling the position yet. Bishop to c3 I don't really understand because you were mentioning c5 and you don't want to put a piece on the c file. So b6 played, she's preventing c5, maybe rook to d1, and Savita will continue playing the position normally and wait for black to reveal her cards.
She did go rook d1, so you called it, and a bishop c6 from black. I think at some point white's just going to play f4 because of a lack of options. You just need to gain some activity for your pieces. This is a very bad bishop, and also this knight can sometimes wrap around to a square like c5, but I think Anna's handling everything perfectly thus far.
I honestly want to reroute my knight to f3 with d2 and f3 because I don't like what its placement on b3 right now. It's doing nothing, Robert, and it cannot even go to d4.
I think knight d2 was good, but I just had the sense that she was setting it up for f4. When she went king h1, she's putting her king tucked away. If pawn takes e5 is the plan, open this bishop up for an attack, open the rook on the f-file. I think it's a good decision for Blitz, especially because Anna's clock is down to 50 seconds.
It might be dangerous. E takes e5 and knight d7, so she doesn't take on f4. Yeah, prudent choice. Knight d7. Pawn takes will be met with knight e5, very conveniently post on e5. But maybe white does take because we also get the d4 square. She goes queen g4, maybe rook f3, rook g3. A rook lift is in the cards.
Yeah, why not? Go for a checkmating attack. It seems available.
ef4 is a huge blunder here. Checkmating, allowing checkmate on g7. We have to be careful. Maybe bishop f6 is also another wise move here, just keeping g7 defended.
Although I might be tempted to play f5 and just try to break open the king side in this manner. And I also liked your idea at some point of bringing this knight back towards the king side. So Anna now down to about 20 seconds, and her clock is ticking. Not an easy position to figure out.
It's very difficult to be black here. She plays bishop f6, f5. So now e6 pawn is attacked. You take on f5 and then what? You take with the rook? Yes.
Yeah, I'm bringing all my pieces to the party. So king h8, a very smart move there. And I feel like black has really controlled all the key squares, all the potential attacking points, but you have to watch out. You can never take your eye off of rook takes f6, for example.
Right. Rook f6 is a very typical exchange sacrifice in these kind of positions, but the problem for white is all her pieces are on the queen side. She needs to bring them over to the king side. Maybe bishop c2 is a good move to start with because it will be hanging on the d file, and then you bring the knight over to the king side with d2 to f3. Or even c1, e2, g3, h5.
So you called it bishop c2, but the problem with the bishop not on d3 is c4 is loose. Great recognition from Anna. I mean, all of Anna's moves have made perfect sense thus far. She's protected everything, and now the question is knight d2. She goes queen e2, so she's going back towards the queen side with her queen, and then eventually her knight can reroute to the king side, but she'll have to do that.
Yeah, she didn't want to allow knight c5, but she has to do that, as you mentioned. And bishop to d3. Why does she want to keep the knight on b3? But now it's even more difficult because knight d2 will allow knight c5 with the tempo.
But I'm sacrificing. I think it's very scary for black to play knight c5. No matter, I would not have been able to refrain from rook takes f6.
Right. Maybe white has rook takes f6 even now.
Right now. Oh, especially now because the bishop is loose.
Oh,
I'm taking on f6 twice. This, I think, should end the game because there's no way with 7 seconds on your clock black will defend her king.
But then can I take on c4 first? Rook f6, pawn takes c4, but cb5 played. And rook f d8 and queen c3 next. Rook f6 was required, Robert.
Yeah, rook f6 looked so tempting. And how does she save queen c4 maybe now? To stop this queen takes c3 business? She finds it.
But bishop b5 and... Bishop b5, and what next? Queen takes, queen c3, knight c4.
How did we get a positional game? Like, black has this horrible bishop, and queen b7, what a find there by Savita. That was really good spot, queen takes f7, with rook takes f6 to follow.
This is lost after rook f6. Rook f6 and resigns.
Just take, and then take.
Knight
You can
e5.
bring more pieces to the party. Queen e6 is perfectly good. Now, she
She repeated twice, yeah?
knight d6.
d6.
It's
Okay.
should probably be good enough because knight f7 check. Yeah, knight
And
f7.
knight f7.
That's winning. Because knight takes d8 is check, and you protect your queen. White is up a piece, and Anna will just play out these moves. But what a game from Savita there.
Great game. She's showing so much control in her blitz games this tournament. Rook e5, king f6, rook to e2, and this is definitely winning for white. Do we go on another game, Robert, or do we stick to this one?
Harika beat Wenjun, so Savita did just get the victory. Let's go to see what's happening with the other remaining
in
game.
fact, all the games are over.
As soon as we asked, yeah.
And Divya beat Vantika in a very nice, the end position is picturesque.
Oh,
Again, the same last move, queen h8.
yes.
With the same, yeah,
Same.
absolutely. So, this is 2-0 for Divya against Vantika in Kolkata this year. We must go through this one. Do you think we should go through this one, Robert? And maybe we have the results on the screen and then we have a look at all the games.
Sure, let's go over the results of all 5 games because they all came in at once. We did watch Savita win a nice game there against Anna Ushenina, but there were many decisive results. So if we could show everybody who just won their game, and I think we have a new individual leader, someone who was leading earlier in the event. She's back to first place.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dronawali Harika won against Wenjun. Did we have a look at that game, Robert?
No,
we
we're missing. We have to miss some games. We can't catch every single one. It's unfortunate because they're 2 of the best players on the planet. But I guess we can look at the results after this if we want. But if you want to start through this game, it was a calm opening from Divya. No Chompovsky, a b4. So she's playing
So calm.
playing these fun lines to get advanced pawns.
Right, and see, you must be approving her openings. No, she's playing a new opening in every game.
Yeah, it's great to see. And she's playing adventurous chess, and she seems to know her lines quite well. So she's going for development, and she can play c4 at any moment, and there's a big change. So the pawn takes away from the queen side, so later c4 will be good. And what do you make of this position, Somya, where white has the better pawn structure, but black has some open lines?
Yeah, I don't like the bishop being stuck on g7. I want to play e5, but then c4 and d5 is white's next moves. Sorry. Also, the rook on f8 is hanging, as you pointed out. So maybe it's just more convenient to be white here.
Yeah, it seems that way. And c4, d5 is a good idea, especially if the rook goes to e8, because then you get to exploit a pin on the a4 to e8 diagonal. So we see she takes on c6 because if the queen takes e7 is loose. That is a very good find by her. Normally we like to keep our bishops, but if it ruins black's pawn structure, you get a free hand on the queen side. This was really nice transition play from Divya.
And c3, not c4, because you want to put your queen on c4 and attack c6. Maybe go c5 with your queen later and put your knight on c4 next. So this is a clear-cut plan for white. Let's see what black does. Rook takes, and rook b8. So maybe we can simply take and then play bishop e7, but then we allow queen to b2. That's something so dangerous. We don't have an escape square yet.
Right. And they allow the queen in. It's not worth the pawn. We keep saying how these strong players, they love to keep their opponent at bay. They don't want the material. And we saw that the knight did go to c4. That's why the pawn didn't go there. And it looks like...
Bishop d6 was... I thought she blundered, but rook takes b1 and it's all okay. But this is even better.
Yeah, this kind of position where she was able to actually keep her pawn and cling on to it. But this should be a draw with best play, but it's not always going to be best play when there's time trouble. And let's see how the game actually concluded because it's even material. And I think black lost a pawn somehow, and that's what ended up winning the game for white. Well, look at this king. Queen e5, and she probably... This is where she got very worried at this stage because you never know, is the queen trade just winning for white or can black survive? But here, f5, allowing this pawn to drop.
King g3, maybe queen d5 was also not... Maybe there are no good moves here. Queen c2? Queen C2 might be the only move.
Yeah, Queen C2 looks like it should be sufficient to hold everything together. And Queen D5 is one of these moves. I'm sure it's going to say even, because once the king goes here, there's this move F6.
Right.
But very hard to know that this is a draw in time trouble. So I completely understand the reaction, but unfortunately for Avantika, it's just now suddenly a losing position because of the pass pawn and, in the game, checkmate.
Oops. That was brutal. And great for Divya, not much for Avantika. There have been 4 1-0s in this round, Robert. 4 games with 1-0. Only Humpy draw against Nino in a completely complicated position. I think they repeated.
Yeah, this is a complicated position, and they were repeating moves, it would seem. So the queen went back and forth, and so they made a draw in this manner. And the eval bar says about equal. Let's just look at the final positions before we get the results here. Ooh, Harika with a crushing victory in the end, up a piece against Wenjun. Maybe we can look at this game later. And last but certainly not least, Polina beat Irina. Oh, this is just a ton of extra material for white.
Absolutely. This is... again, Irina is having a tough tournament so far. How many points is she on? I think let's just have a look at the standings if we have them.
Yeah, and Paulina up to 4 points with that win. So Paulina's doing great, and Irina is struggling. So, yeah, why don't we look at some of the results that we've had? That would be excellent just to show everybody that there we see Divya won against Vantika. We just looked at that. Paulina, we saw the final position against Irina. Harika wins with white. Huge game, huge win over Wenjun. Nino and Humpy, they drew a complicated game. And last but certainly not least, Savita Sri wins with white against Anna Ushenna. We did focus on that game. And as we see the standings, Harika in clear first, Humpy and Paulina in a tie for second and third. Wenjun drops to 3.5 points. She loses not just 1, but 2 games in a row.
Right. And yeah, I mean, Wenjun must be suffering, I guess. 2 losses in a row is hard to take, but Irina even more with 1.5 points. She needs to get going. And Harika, of course, is having a great tournament so far.
It's so nice to see. I mean, sure, the Indian fans. Let's hear from the chat. Come on. Let us know, how do you feel about Harika in first place? I'm sure they're going to go crazy in support for her. She was never near the top in the rapid. She ended up in 4th place with an even 4.5 out of 9. But I want to see the support for Harika here, which is, let's hear the fans' thoughts and hear their support. And there's fans live in the auditorium. They can't cheer during the games, but I'm sure they want to.
There is a lot of support in the chat. You're right, Robert. Let's go, Harika. Oh, there is Rakesh in the chat who says, let's go. And Anita as well. Anita. And there are, yes, I think there is a lot of support for Harika in the chat. I'm going through it. Someone questioned Wenjun's loss. Yes, Wenjun did lose on time. We did get confirmation from the arbiters, so that was unfortunate. And of course, this game as well, this is the 7th round, so she's playing Nino, but in the 6th round she lost to Harika, but
right.
We did not go through the game.
We just saw the end of that game. In the few minutes before the next round, we can look at it. That might be nice for the viewers. We saw the opening stage, and actually we left off just 17 moves into the game. So this is where we stopped looking, and I guess Harika was able to outplay her world champion opponent in the end game by carving out the light squares. A very good plan. And look at this play. I'm sure it was magnificent technique. The king comes up to c2 rather than going to the corner. The bishop slides back because this is the problem for black. You need to cover this square. The king couldn't do it because the rook would have joined the attack. And now black is in a passive position. And look at the full board awareness. Rook g4, rook b4.
Yeah, Harika, even in her game against Divya, she was very alert with her rooks, and here as well. So she is come with so much concentration, which is the most important thing, especially in Blitz, right? Like, blunders are a result of lack of concentration, basically, and she seems to have got all her energy back. Rook b4, how do we defend this?
You can't, because if you play a pawn push to b5, I play a4, I break it open. If you play rook c7, I play king b3 with this knight fork next, and you're in big trouble. So what happened in the game was rook to b8, and watch this, rook h4. Wow. She went rook e4 to g4 to b4 to h4, and now she's won a pawn. This is really high-class stuff from Harika, and black is forced to defend very passively, but now white's already up a pawn and in a great position.
Wenjun might have to rethink her opening choice in the next d4 game, because she has gotten into a lot of trouble in this one. Very passive for black. How do you... Yeah, I think...
Every move with purpose from Harika, just now going after the king side.
And now h4, g5 even, and there is no... Wow, f6, that's beautiful.
Yeah, not even taking back, just using this pin to her full advantage, winning a piece. So, we can't go through every single nuance in the game, but this is a really nice one-sided win from Harika.
Absolutely, she deserves it. Great game for her. Huge confidence booster to beat the current world champion and the top seed of the event. So Harika moves to 4.5 points. Humpy and Shuvalova following closely with 4.
Yes, so as we get ready for the 7th round, it's about to start in a couple minutes here. We do have some fun matchups for everybody, right? We have Humpy taking on Savita. That will be a lot of fun for the Indian fans. We have Wenjun taking on Nino Batsiashvili. Nino always combative, no matter her score. Anna Ushanina takes on Divya Deshmukh. Anna just lost, and Divya, she's probably starting to feel the rhythm. She beat Vantika in that game, so I think Divya with her 0-2 start, suddenly she's rebounded and is towards the middle of the pack.
Yeah, it looks like she got her form back, and Divya is someone, Dad mentioned this, that she's someone who always stays in the present moment. She doesn't keep thinking about what happened so far. Even if she had a bad tournament, she moves on to the next one quickly, and I think that's really helps her come back in difficult tournaments as well. I remember in the Olympiad as well, she started very slowly, but she ended with a gold medal, her first one, of course. So she is someone who's great with comebacks. Let's stick to Harika's game this time, because we haven't been covering her game live so far.
Yeah, she's playing Irina, and Irina is struggling in the Blitz. We saw Irina lose that game to Vantika, with that end result being a checkmate for black. So the games are starting. The players are making their first move. So let's lock in to the action that is unfolding in the playing hall. I love this view, by the way, because the fans, this is the fan view. They get to see all 5 boards on that big screen, and the players, if they are waiting for their opponent to move, they can quickly look to see the other results. And that was important yesterday when Divya and Wenjun were tied for first going into the last round of the Rapid.
Yeah, she did mention she kept checking Wenjun's games, so this is so beautiful to watch. And can we also get the boards on the screen so that we can go through the moves?
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get that up any moment now. But the players, they're set, they're focused, and this is the game between Harika with the black pieces and Irina with white.
Oh, look at Harika's opening, Robert. She goes d4, g6, c4, bishop g7, knight c3, d6, e4, e5. So she's not yet developed the bishop and the knight on g8, and she is free to develop it to e7.
Exactly, because black's big plan in these openings, in the King's Indian styles, but f5. With the knight f6, you have to move it away. It takes time. This is very smart play from Harika, and I don't think she's going to do it just yet, and maybe she won't do it at all. She's going to trade the dark square bishops, just like Vantika beat Irina using the dark squares. Maybe that's Harika's plan, not to play f5 and open up this bishop.
Do you think in round-robin tournaments, players tend to target the player who is not performing well, and Harika knows she's, of course, in the lead, Irina in last place, so she will not give any chance for Irina to play a equal position. She'll keep attacking her.
Yes, that does definitely happen. I mean, every player here is super strong. Some round robins, there's one player who kind of stands out lower rated. That's not the case in this field, but I think with Irina struggling and Harika in first place, if she's given the opportunity, she will definitely play for an advantage. But right now, it's so close. Not a single pawn has been traded. The only thing traded was the bishop for the knight on f3, and I think that neither side should complain too much. I'm only worried about Irina's clock.
Right. She's already down to 1 minute 55 seconds. What could be black's ideas here? First of all, we do like a light square bishop as black, so we gave it up. It's not something to be very happy about, but instead we got a lot of moves. We got knight to c5, and pawn on h4, h5 Bishop h6. I think trading the dark squared bishop is definitely in black's favor.
For sure.
So do you think white will play bishop b2 or bishop g5 or take on h6?
I think if you played bishop b2 and I played g5, you're in huge trouble because your king is castled. Oh, here it comes. No, this is for Blitz. I'm shocked. I'm actually shocked that Harika castled. Maybe she's just keeping it close and not playing really for a win just yet. But just to show that if you play g5 and pawn takes, bishop takes, h4 is coming, you can castle queenside later in the game. Your king is safe in the center. So I definitely would have been looking in that direction. I understand why she didn't. There is some risk to that for black as well. And she chooses the calmer approach.
Yeah, but I love your suggestion with g5. If she had found it, she would have gone for it. But she probably just was thinking in a different direction. Short castle, and even this is quite good for black because bishop on h6 is on a better diagonal than on g7 where it was blocked behind its own pawns, and she can still think about g5, right, after king h7 and rook g8.
It'll take a lot of work, but I think what I like best about black's position is not even on the board. I look at the clock again. I ran it down to about 40 seconds. That's a struggle for her. I mean, she's been getting too low on the clock. It is hard to make that transition from rapid chess to blitz in just one day. And the rapid chess is over 25 minutes. Here they're 3 minutes for the whole game plus the 2-second increment per move. And it does kind of look like it's Harika on the clock, so maybe there could be some relay lags, but yeah, Queen E2 was played, and she still only has 47 seconds as white.
Do you think that the players must have gotten a few Blitz games on Chess.com last night as a preparation?
I think it would be helpful to play some Blitz just to warm up. Magnus talks about that, where even if he's playing a classical event, if he feels like he had a bad game, he just tries to get it out of his system. But this position is extremely closed right now, and I think that favors the knights, at least in theory.
Right, and do we have time to look at another game, Robert, before we come back to this one? Maybe Paulina's game?
Sure.
You really want to check that?
Yeah, let's look at Paulina's game. She is in a tie for second place. This game that we were just looking at was a bit more closed, and now we see an open board where, unfortunately for Vantika, if I'm counting correctly, she's down a pawn as white, and her last move was rook c1, so she's going for an attack against the queen. I would be moving this queen out of there really quickly. I think you had to
Knight g6. She doesn't move the queen, Robert. But knight d5, knight f4 is the point. Rooks, knight c7, knight h5, and knight a6, but the knight is trapped on a6.
Wow, really smart move, especially in blitz chess. And Paulina had much more time in rapid. She continues to have more time in blitz. I don't think that you can easily play this decision with that knight, as you said, getting trapped over there on a6.
Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, it's not yet hanging because rook a8 was
She
impossible.
played it.
Oh, she does go for it. So we will see this line happening over the board. So knight f4, definitely. Knight c7 and knight h5, knight e6. The problem is we don't have rook a8 because a bishop on g2 controls the a8 square.
Right.
But the knight still doesn't have a future.
And I think that's the key, is that even though the material will have evened up, that knight is stuck over there. And you're always worried about it when you only have less than 10 seconds on the clock. So I see this position. I would be worried for white, but Paulina has decided to think. And finally, she takes an f4. We will see a series of forced trades.
Right, knight a6 on the board. And rook c1 is not a good idea. She does go for it. I thought it's not a great idea because it gives up the c file. Because now the knight can come back, but I realized that now the rook was hanging on c1 after rook c8. So knight c7 was not possible.
Right.
And rook c2, what does the rook do on c2? I was thinking rook c3 maybe, so that knight c7, knight b5. She goes rook c6.
That's what I was expecting, because this b6 pawn is now under attack. But I think that black can just give up this pawn and go rook d2. I know it looks risky, but at least you're getting ambitious. She did go bishop e5, same idea. In fact, a better square. But I love bishop f3. I love the patience.
Yeah, bishop f3, and now maybe rook d1 first. Oh, knight g4. Paulina creating a lot of threats against white's king. If we take on g4, h takes. Our e2 pawn is then weak after rook d2. King f1 will be... No, maybe e3 is better than king f1, right?
Yeah, e3 though, then when I take, I'll play bishop c3, bishop e1. That's why she's keeping this pawn on e2, to stop the rook from gaining access over to f2. So this should be, with best play, a draw, but 7 seconds for white. That makes it very difficult. Quickly going to look to see. It looks like Divya won with black against Anna Uchenina. So Divya is in great shape suddenly after losing her first 2 games.
Wow, that's fantastic for Divya. 3 out of 3 in the 4 out of 4.
No, she drew some games.
Yeah, I think she's 3 out of 3. And then Harika won against Irina, that game, Robert, which we were looking at.
She won?
Yes, she did. We must have a look at how it ended.
Maybe on time?
Or maybe on time.
Or maybe there more moves are going to come in. But let's go around some more. We'll come back to see the final position. Who else is...
No, maybe there was an error because I saw there was a result, but now there isn't. So
got it.
Rook A3 and King G2, Rook B7. What do you think, Robert? Rook A2 is possible, right?
It depends on whose F pawn gets in more trouble, because white wants to get a queen up here and black wants to take and get the queen in as well.
So Rook A2, Queen C4 looks like the only way.
Whoa.
And Rook C3 has been played.
No. There's this. You see, the. Wait, what?
This is not possible.
Rook B6 and it wasn't. No. There's no way. But okay, we're gonna cat. Okay, they broke in the DGT board because sometimes when they drag pieces on squares, they get stuck. So something wild is happening. We're just gonna have to watch. It looks like the game is ended.
I think Harika won because Irina resigned.
Yeah, it looked like Harika did win. We will hopefully get confirmation on what in the world happened in this game. We'll come back to it. But let's look at some other games. If they're still going. Is Humpy still playing?
Humpy's still playing? Yes, she's playing against Savita.
Oh, but she's in big trouble. So Savita, that's checkmate in 1.
Oh my god. And knight d3 rook f1.
That's mate. Savita beats Humpy with the black pieces. That's checkmate on board.
What a shocker. This is a brilliant result for Savita. I mean, the youngest player in the tournament checkmates Konero Humpy.
Huge win for Savita, an unfortunate loss for Humpy. We'll come back to see how that happened. But let's see Vantika against Paulina. Paulina had a great position earlier. Vantika took that pawn on d5, if we remember. And now it's Vantika up a pawn. If she can hold steady on the clock, which has been an issue for her in some games, then she has an outside pass that's very dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, h6, rook h1, h7 anyway, because rook h7 meets with knight f6 check.
Looks like a great opportunity for... looks like her rook has moved. We are struggling, and for being honest, it seems like the DGT boards are not catching up to the players' moves. Oh, and you see that? She dragged a piece and moved it. That sometimes confuses the board too. Wow. The moves are in. We see the game, and it looks like Vantika bringing her king up and trying to get the knight involved.
G6. This looks like winning for white completely because the king is much further away. But king f6 and then
king
rook
f6, rook
h6.
h6, exactly. So she's able to get her king up in time, and she has an extra pawn here.
But is this easy?
Rook
because
a8, rook
king
a8.
f6.
That was a missed opportunity. She had. Oh, that's really hard to see in time trouble. But she had one move there that won the game.
Right, and I think this now is probably a draw because king g4, rook g2, and we will never allow you to play f5.
And you can even just take this pawn now.
Actually, you can take this pawn.
Yeah, when the king was on f3, you couldn't, but now you can. So this is what Paulina has realized, that this actually is just a draw if she doesn't take the pawn.
But she allowed f5. That's surprising that she did not take on h7 now.
I think she just knows it's a draw, that there's no way forward for white. It's very frustrating. And if your king could get up to... Okay, now it's up to f6, but rook takes g6 is a draw. Oh, she goes for the long side. Still a draw, but rook takes g6 would have been a forced draw as well.
Yeah, okay. And rook a1, rook g2, and... Okay, but okay, rook a7. I have lost a similar endgame. I just had a pawn on a5, and that's why it made things worse. But still, it is possible to blunder in this endgame as well. But I think she knows her endgames well.
Yeah,
King
they're just
e5.
repeating moves, going around and around. But this king is not making any progress. In fact, that's a draw by repetition. So look at Paulina. She realizes it, and she tries to claim
Claims
it.
a draw, yeah.
Yes, she's correct. That this has been played multiple times. So.
Wow, so we have a draw claim. The first time an arbiter has been called to the board in this tournament.
And while they figure that out, I just want to point out there was that one moment it looked like where white is winning, and it was right here. If rook a8 was played, the problem for black is you have to take this check comes into play. The king is forced to the 7th rank, and then when the rooks are traded over here, white wins because the king is out in front of the pawn, helping usher it to the other side.
This is very instructive, and if she had more time, she might have found it, but with less time, it's hard to see that this is the moment where rook a8 works. And rook a6, I think a draw will be declared by the arbiters. And we have had 3 results. Yes, a draw has been declared. So Vantika drew against Shuvalova, Harika drew against Irina.
Yeah, that
It was a draw, not a loss for Irina.
the board seemingly got stuck. I will try to see what actually happened, but maybe they were just repeating moves back and forth in a position like this. White can't budge. And then it looks like Wenjun, she beat Nino Batsiashvili. So, look, speaking of winning king and pawn in games, that was the final position.
Oh, nice. Good for Wenjun. I mean, she had 2 losses in a row and got a win in her pet end games. Divya, of course, beat Anna Ushenina and is on a roll.
Yeah, Divya is storming back, trying to compete for another title here in Calcutta. That would be, I mean, almost too much now. She was already crying after winning the Rapid, but if she wins the Blitz as well, I think that she would just maybe, I don't even know what, but she would not be able to believe that.
We should ask this question to our chat before we take a break. Do you guys think Divya Deshmukh will win the Blitz tournament as well? Let us know. And maybe we'll see you, yes, definitely in a few minutes, because how many rounds are there? Only 7 rounds are over, Robert. We have 2 more games.
2 more games today. These were the results. Divya, as Somi mentioned, won with black. She's on a roll. Savita with maybe one of the big wins of her career. It's in Blitz chess, but still it counts as over India #1, Humpy Koneru. Wenjun wins with white against Nino Batsiashvili. And then 2 draws between Irina Krush and Harika Dronavali, and Vantika Agrawal and Paulina Shuvalova, which we did just witness. So that leaves us with 1 leader, Harika, still in first, but Paulina and Wenjun in second. And then look behind Humpy. Savita Shri and Divya Deshmukh, the youngsters, they're climbing the ranks.
Absolutely, on 4 points. That's impressive. It could be anybody's tournament because so many rounds to go, but we will wait for the leader at the end of this day. We have 2 more rounds to go. We'll be back soon in a few minutes. Do stay with us and let us know in the poll.
We are 7 rounds in here at the Tata Steel Chess India Women's Blitz Tournament. We have one leader, and that is Harika Dronavale. So great to see her back in form after a mediocre, by her standards, a rapid tournament.
Absolutely.
But there's a bunch of trailers who are close behind her, and not only are there 2 more games today, there are 9 more tomorrow.
Yeah, it's too many games, Robert, still to go, but it's important to be in form because there are how many? 9 and 11 games to go, but Harika is in full form right now, so anybody who wants to catch up with her needs to beat her. Harika playing against Vantika and Wenjun playing against Savita Shri, who had a memorable game in the last round against Koneru Humpy.
Huge win for Savita. It's great to see her perform so well. Thus far, 4 points out of 7 games. And Paulina Shuvalova, she'll make her mark on this field. She's trying to climb into first place. She plays black against the CEO, Divya Deshmukh.
Oh, that's a matchup we are going to see in many years to come because both of them are almost from the same age group. A rivalry building up there. Let's go to Paulina and Divya's board. They have started with d4, knight f6, knight f3, d5 on the board, and Divya goes for her pet, another one of her surprise openings, the London system, which she often employs.
It's funny because I feel like it's hard to surprise Paulina. Paulina seems to be a chess player who is happy to play any opening. Doesn't matter what it is. But look at this line. This is a variation where she clings onto this extra pawn. So if the move a5 happens, we just see that. White plays bishop to b5. This can be very difficult to handle in blitz chess, and the reason why is white is a pawn ahead, and black needs to prove that compensation.
Absolutely, and bishop b5. Can we take on b4, or do we take our knight out of the pin first and then threaten to take on b4?
She answered the question. I didn't have it, so I'm glad she moved so quickly. I do think that oftentimes you take and bring your queen up to d4, which protects this pawn over here on b4. Also stops the bishop's development because the g7 pawn is in the queen's sight. So a move like queen d4 is possible. I'm not sure if you would ever take on g7. It looks too risky, but queen d4, knight e5, take those dark squares.
But now isn't queen f6 possible with g3 being met with a into b4 and the rook on a1 is hanging? Oops, after cb.
Right, this pawn is loose over here, so maybe queen d4 anyway after
Right.
queen f6. Not really ideal. I don't think I want to trade queens that badly, but I'm up a pawn.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you're up a pawn and you would have a great pawn structure as well after queen takes, knight takes, and maybe b5 if the bishop stays on c6. So, Paulina taking her time, she goes for bishop e7 and knight to d2. So now white managed to maintain her extra pawn.
I think these types of positions are so difficult in blitz chess for black. It's an extra pawn. This knight can go out to b3, this knight to e5. White just takes all these dark squares, and this bishop, it's staring, even if it goes to b5, into thin air once the rook slides away. I love white's position here. Should we quickly take a look at some of our other games?
Definitely, Harika is leading the tournament. We should have a look at how she's doing against Vantika Agarwal. Harika with the white pieces. And she's opened with her Reti, pet Reti, and the knight is on c7, b4 by Harika.
It's hard to wrap my head around. It's even material, so it would seem. b4 is going to be captured next. This rook likely to slide over to b1 at any moment. Do you like the bishop pair here, or do you feel like Harika is playing energetically on the queen side, so you like white?
I'm not sure because I don't mind black's position either. I mean, what is wrong with black's position? Absolutely nothing. The knight will come to c5, defend b7, then the bishop can be happily developed to d7 and brought to c6, or try for d5, open up the position because you have a bishop pair. But maybe, now I see the point, the d4 pawn will be hanging, once we take on c5 with the knight. So maybe this is one problem in the endgames, but anyway, queen was brought back to d2 and there is no endgame on the board.
No endgame, playing some fighting chess here. And for black, one of the big questions is, what's your plan? Do you go f5, or does that make this bishop on g2 a little bit too happy? It's ambitious chess. I think your idea of bishop b7, bishop c6 to start with, keep your pawn on b7 safe and sound. But I just worry a little bit that if black doesn't do anything, white has some easy moves like a rook to b6, maybe knight b4, or knight c1 to b3. This queen
might get trapped.
Yeah, it's running out of some squares.
Especially after e5. Like your plan with rook b6. Imagine rook b6, bishop c6, knight c1, knight b3, and the queen is trapped. So, oops. But she doesn't go bishop c6. She goes knight to b4, exchanging some pieces. But that's good for black, no? She's like, now the queen has no problems. Okay, now knight c1 actually is pretty strong, but we have queen a7 anyway.
There's also knight c1, bishop h6 that we have to keep an eye out because the rook on b4 is loose. So a move like bishop h6 is a creative way of causing white some problems.
Maybe we see the line happening, Robert, on the board. Bishop h6, nice move there.
Let's see if she spots it because it's easy to overlook that, and she does because you're not looking in that direction. Bishop h6 is almost never a good move. It's a free piece, but that rook on b4 didn't have a defender. Now suddenly you see white advancing. It can be a bit scary.
And queen b8 would be terrible to play because a6, I guess.
Oh, I like that move though. That bishop's been bad. Let's bring it to d8 and get this rook out of here. So at long last, the bishop plays in this game.
And now the rook will have some problems on b6. Do we... Oh, she ignores it. She simply goes h4. And does she want to bring bishop h3 and maybe king h2, rook g1 in the future and go g4?
Yes, especially if this bishop is going over here. Sure, the rook has to step back first, but all of black's pieces will be focused on the queen side. g4 is a worthy consideration. I feel like Vantika's playing an amazing game. I just have this preference of the position being closed. I want to have the knight. I want to have the opportunity to open the board, and king g7. She's waiting for you to play g4. So I think every move that Vantika has played has been excellent.
Yeah, she's understanding the position very well. The only problem is her queen is completely out of play and she brings it back. She comes queen b8, queen to c7. Now it's at least much better than what it was earlier, and you can even bring it to e7 just in case.
And play g5. We talked about g4 for white. Why not g5 for black? There's a rook that can come to h8. I really love the way that this has been handled. Queen e7 also threatens bishop takes a5. That pawn is loose over here, and black seems to have a lot of time, at least on the board, even if not so much on the clock.
Does Harika feel very uncomfortable right now? Because she's been playing rook b6, rook b4 multiple times. The knight is on b3. She doesn't want to move it because the a5 pawn is hanging. And so the rook and the knight are sort of stuck on the queen side.
Not really many options for her. She can't move her pieces. And bishop c7. She doesn't rush to take on a5. She can play rook a7, rook a8. She can focus her pieces in their best squares. Look at it. She's optimizing everything.
Oh, I'm actually surprised. I thought black is going to play on the king side with rook g8 and king h7 and g5, but now suddenly the action has shifted to the queen side.
That rook is trapped, and that gives black all of this time because b7 is protected. I think part of the reason she's not playing on the king side is this bishop is a very bad piece. It's behind a wall of pawns. Let's not open anything for it. No squares. So rook f to a8 is what I expect. But do we have any news on what's happening in some of the other games? Like we were looking at Divya against Polina.
Yeah, let's go to Divya playing against Polina. We will come back to this one.
Okay. Let's see how Divya is doing against Polina. So, whoa, there's a king on g3. Looks very adventurous from white.
Very, very creative and adventurous. Pawn to g5. Polina under a lot of pressure right now. Queen f5, knight d4
the queen's
traps the queen, queen e4, and queen d2.
But there's rook takes a3 check in some of these positions.
And king.
Wait, can I just take your queen and take your bishop?
Oh,
That's what Paulina forgot.
Yes.
Yeah, you see her shaking her head. We were also looking for a queen trap. Paulina realized her queen wasn't trapped, but she forgot her bishop was hanging.
Right, and white is a piece up, and white one.
Wow, let's just instant replay that very quickly. The queen was almost trapped on f5. The only square out was e4. But we thought, let's move the queen away somewhere. But unfortunately, there, rook takes a3 happens with a check. Maybe still good for white, you're right. But she found the simpler plan. Just trade queens and win a bishop. And that was that. A nice win for Divya Deshmukh.
Very, very crucial there. Of course, we will see them meet each other many times over the board over the years. Queen c1 by Harika. And this now looks completely equal, right? Or you like the position for black because she's, of course, a pawn up and the b pawn might be a big passer.
Yeah, not easy to push it all the way because the king will be exposed and there's a check on a7, for example, and this e5 pawn will be loose. Like queen d7, already queen c5 feels very annoying. queen e6, bishop h3 type of ideas. I don't think that black can easily keep everything together, and there's no way this pawn is pushing anytime soon.
Right. Actually, black also needs to be more careful about her own king. I mean, we saw in the previous game against Divya how the king got checkmated, and yeah, it's not at all easy to convert this as black king h6 once again. She has to be careful about the checkmate on h8. The queen needs to, like bishop e6 for example, but okay, king g7, queen a7, king h6, and maybe they're repeating.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense, and the draw has been agreed. And Vantika played an exceptional game. She didn't win it, and I think as she continues to improve, she'll be able to secure points in those advantageous positions. But I like the way she played, and I think that leaves us with just one game remaining, and it's between Savitri and Wenjun. And if my eyes are not deceiving me, okay, this is the wrong pawn for black, but white can't get to this c4 pawn.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand how is black going to win this, because only black can win this. White can't. Bishop, if we come to f2 with our bishop, then white simply picks up the c4 pawn, and then we don't exchange the bishops.
Yeah, maybe this is a draw with optimal play, but you said don't exchange the bishop. She did it, and now it's a losing position.
Yeah, because the king will be too far away, and we will pick up the... Oh, it will be a stalemate trick, and g4 will be forced in the end game. I see that.
There's that too. Yeah, it's that simple.
Oh, this is very instructive by Wenjun, and total class here. c2, king c1, king c3. And white has no option but to play g4, and g1 will come with mate.
And so Wenjun wins. We see the handshake, and you could see on Savita's face, she was disappointed there. She overlooked this idea, and we understand why. Because if instead of king c3 you go king e3, it's immediately a draw, because these rook pawns are so bad in the endgames. As long as the king gets in this box over here, then it's going to be a draw. And I think Savita overlooked the stalemate trick, where once the king goes to c3, only move is g4, and to complete the game, you just push your passed pawn to the other side. White is one move too slow. That is checkmate.
It's very impressive by Wenjun. She's winning all her games in endgames. Have you observed that, Robert? I mean, it's very, very impressive. And can we go back a little bit in that moment if this was a draw or not?
It seems like it should have been a draw, but at this moment over here, when the pawns, I think h4 was a really, really big mistake from white, because there was no need to rush this decision on this flank. And I guess she was afraid that king g2 would happen and she would have to do that anyway. But distracting the bishop is really important, because king g2, I think you can play g5, as if the bishop takes what's a free pawn, now we get this pawn, and the h pawn will not win black the game.
But this was tough, and in Blitz, obviously h4 is such a natural move, you want to play it. So yeah, tough game for Savita. On the other hand, great win for Wenjun. You know who lost? Humpy lost to Anna Osenina.
Wow, I mean, Anna is such a strong player. She wins with the white pieces against
Humpy has lost the last two games.
Oh, yeah. And look at the final. It's just checkmate. G6, queen h7 is checkmate on the board. So this was a really just nasty finish here for Anna Osenina.
Yeah, I mean, incredible win for Anna, but tough for Humpy to lose 2 games in a row, ending in checkmate. This is very tough to take, and the good part is only one more game remains in today for her to play. And whom does she play in the last round, Robert? I think she plays
Divya. Same pairings as the Rapid. So we see the results from the 8th round of the Blitz. Divya Deshmukh wins again, this time with the white pieces against Polina Shuvalova. Harika drew that game against Vantika. Very well played. I want to give another shout out to Vantika for an excellent performance in that game. Irina wins the black against Nino. So Nino and Irina to this point have been struggling, but it seems like Irina had the upper hand. Wenjun won a beautiful endgame against Savita Sri. Unfortunate for the youngster, she was unable to hold, and Anna Osenina wins her game against Humpy Koneru. So that leaves us heading into the final game of the day with these standings. Harika, Wenjun at the top, but Divya, who lost her first 2 games, she's right behind them.
I know, never give up, and she doesn't. By the way, there was a poll which we asked before we went for the break, and it's very close. 54% of our chat thinks Divya will not win the Blitz segment, but that means that 46% thinks that she will.
every win that she secures gets her that much closer. She's now at 5 out of 8, and meanwhile, Wenjun and Harika at 5.5 points. So the Blitz feels a lot closer than the Rapid because Divya was crushing it in the Rapid, and Wenjun was kind of silently doing the same. Now we see players with 5.5 out of 8 rather than 6 out of 8 leading the way.
Yeah, and I think everybody has won a few games at least. Nobody. I think only Irina is having a tough.
Irina just beat Nino, so Nino
Yes.
is struggling there.
Yes, but okay, so only Nino is the one who's struggling a bit, but everyone has got at least one win in, and that's very good news. I mean, and the last round, of course, everyone wants to finish well. Right, so we will wait for the games to begin. It was a very nice day so far, Robert.
Yeah, it's been
Very
fun.
exciting.
I think the players, they get about 5 minutes here until the next round begins. So you see the stage is empty. There's some peace in the auditorium, some quiet, but it's the calm before the storm.
Yeah, I mean, I have been feeling so much pressure myself. Watching Blitz is tough. I think playing it is like more fun than watching it. What do you think?
I love both. It's just fun to play. It's fun to watch, fun to commentate.
Yeah.
The pieces, they do start flying at
Yeah.
some point, and it's hard to keep track of everything. But the players, they've been giving it their all, and I've been really impressed, I want to say, with Vantika as well. I mean, that game that she didn't win it, but the way she played against Harika, that was a very mature game from start to finish by her.
Yeah, definitely. I think Vantika plays a lot of Blitz online as well. She has this 2600 on Chess.com. Yeah, she's a great Blitz player. And Harika, of course, what do you think of her performance so far, Robert?
She's been excellent.
Yeah,
and,
she's been excellent.
She's really playing some great chess today. And for Harika, the game against Vantika, it's one where she couldn't get even a slight edge. I felt like Vantika played well from start to finish. And I guess part of it is Vantika, she started 2.5 out of 3 in the Rapid.
Yeah.
Then she had a very bad day, too. She ended on a win, if I'm not mistaken, in the final round of the Rapid.
She did.
And she brought that into today, and I think that probably gave her some more confidence because when you start so well like she did, suddenly you start believing, I can win this thing, and then you get deflated with a bunch of losses in a row. I'm glad to see her playing her normal level of chess, very strong level.
Confidence plays a big role in facing very tough opponents whom you have looked up to or whose games you have grown up watching, literally, right?
Yeah. You need to believe in yourself, as you said. You need to believe that you should win. I learned that from you today.
Okay, that's good. That's good. I hope it helps everyone and especially you, Robert. Harika, of course, is leading. And whom does she play in the last round?
Paulina.
Oh,
It's just same as yesterday's last round. That's
of
how I
course.
remember so quickly.
It's quite easy
Yeah, the Rapid round 9 is the same as the Blitz round 9.
Nice.
And so she gets to play against Paulina, and they played a French defense the last round of yesterday's action.
Yeah, so, but Harika actually, yeah, I think Harika must be extremely happy with her results, but Humpy not so much. She's already lost 2 games. It's tough. It's been very topsy-turvy by her in this tournament so far, not only the Rapid but also the Blitz.
That's what happens, especially in quicker time patrol. Sometimes you win 4 games in a row, and then suddenly you lose 4 games in a row. And you need to remain calm. It's hard to collect yourself when you just have a few minutes between a loss and then the next game. But everybody can beat everybody in this field. And that's a good thing to remember, that even if you're a Wenjun, she lost 2 games in a row.
Right.
She lost 0 games of Rapid, but she lost 2 games of Blitz today already.
Right, and Irina, of course, will also be trying to come back into the tournament. 10 rounds are still left, Robert.
Every time you say the number, it's hard to believe. When you say 9 rounds, then I'll believe you. I know when today ends, there are only 9 rounds remaining.
Absolutely, and she plays Savita Shri. So Savita has also been in great form in this tournament. She had a tough tournament last year, by the way, when she played the Tata Steel Blitz, but this year she's showing some great chess, and there we have the players on the board.
And
Wow.
Yes.
This is such a nice site. I love this site. And
it's great for spectators, but the players, I think this is the scene that makes them the most nervous.
really?
Well, they're just getting ready to play. They don't get to move yet, so they have to think. And they don't want to think, they just want to do.
Absolutely. Blitz is all about action, not thinking, reflexes more than planning. It's a lot of skills are very different in Blitz compared to classical, right?
Yeah, you have to definitely just work on your intuition and playing quickly. And sometimes you have to know when to take your risks and pick your moments. So we have some great matchups in front of us in the next round. Wenjun
Wow.
takes on Anna Ushanina. We see Irina Crush on screen there. She is taking on Savita Sri. Savita's had a good day. She beat Humpy with black.
Yes. And Irina would want to end her day on a good note, definitely. There's Vantika, who's impressed you a lot, Robert, today, and playing against Nino with the white pieces. And of course, we have Polina playing against Harika with white. We should stick to this board because both of them have a good chance of ending the day on the leaderboard. And we also have a look at how Vantika's doing.
Yeah, Vantika in this tournament, 2.5 points out of 8, so her score isn't so great. But I just like the way she's playing chess. I mean, sometimes the results don't go your way, but that kind of class, that form, that's what
French again.
French again. So it's a deja vu for us here in the studio.
So she's decided what she's going to do against Polina. She goes for the same line, maybe bishop b4, a3, bishop a5 once more.
Yeah, this E5,
E5,
C5,
C5.
exactly. That's what we saw yesterday where the bishop retreated. But Polina, she hasn't moved yet, has she?
There was she did something to the clock, but I didn't understand very
Maybe
well.
the clock was a little bit on her Arika's side, so she brought it close. Ooh, I love this variation. This is a very fun line. But Harika didn't budge. She went knight c6, so she's sticking to it. She's allowing this b4 pawn push.
Right, she likes her bishop on that diagonal, a7, g1. And what does the bishop do on b6? Attack d4?
Yeah, it puts pressure on d4. Eventually, if white has to play e5, play f6, you just chisel at the center. It's a very common plan. And look at Polina. She goes for a delayed exchange French. And I think her claim is that this bishop on a5, you'd prefer to be somewhere towards the king side.
Yeah, definitely. It looks like, I mean, I would prefer to play this position as white. I'm just wondering what does black achieve by going for this plan.
Overextension. That yes, white is aiming towards black center, but at some moment a5 could be a good move. She's going to play c6, bishop c7, reroute her pieces to natural squares, the knight coming to f5. Black is definitely doing well. You kind of want your pawn back on b2, I think.
c6, now the bishop will also come to c7, and black is completely okay. Let's have a look at how Humpy is doing against Divya as well.
That was such a big matchup yesterday. Of course, Divya Deshmukh won with the black pieces against Humpy Canero. She refused to repeat moves. Both of them did. They both deserve credit for that fight. And now we see a knight on e4. So Divya, not for the first time today, has plopped her knight on e4, protected by a fianchettoed bishop.
Right, and this is a much calmer position than what we saw yesterday with the hanging pawn situation. Knight comes back to e2 and probably goes to g3 next. Or what is the plan?
Maybe go over to g3, queen come to c2, rook to d1. Just optimize the squares for your pieces. And one of the big decisions for black is, do you play pawn to f5? It's adventurous, it's aggressive, but it also leaves behind certain weaknesses.
And also, when we bring the knight back to e2, c5 becomes more and more possible because the rook on c1. So knight d7 preventing c5 tactics, and now we have an option of queen c2, yes, was played, and rook d1, and also maybe knight e5 ourselves.
For sure, you can go forward rather than back and later kick this knight out with pawn to f3. And so this looks like a pretty normal position, and you know Divya, especially after yesterday's game, thinking about the hanging pawn structure with c5.
Definitely, I think she will go for it. She goes f5 first, so this makes knight e5 even more natural because now there is no f6. I'm curious to see how Humpy will respond. Here knight f4 doesn't look very good, right? Because just queen e8 and black is okay. But she goes knight e5. If we take on e5, then pawn takes and bishop goes to e7, and then we play f3 even, right?
Yeah, and the c7 pawn is going to be in huge, huge trouble if you don't have a bishop on d6. So Divya does not want to take on e5 with her knight. But she might get away with it. There's a possibility, but I don't think she wants to. She'd much rather keep her bishop in line with the pawn.
Right, and I mean, I actually don't see any problem with white's position because I see that white can go f3 as you mentioned, and so the knight will not remain on e4 anymore, whereas our knight can stay on e5 as long as she wants, unless black takes it with a piece, but that allows a pawn on e5. So I would prefer to be white here in this position, Robert.
I agree. Your best move might be to put this pawn back on f6 or do something to kick the knight out of there. It's not possible, as you mentioned, and now Divya is spending quite a lot of time. She is down to about 40 seconds.
That's a lot of time difference. Divya, of course, she has played queen e8, I guess. I saw her touch her queen.
Good move. Keeping the status quo. We keep talking about taking on e5 seems to be a problem, so she covers any weaknesses on this diagonal, namely g6. She preemptively defends this pawn on e6. I think it's a really good move.
It's a great move, and can we also meet knight f4 with g5 or g5?
That could be a lot of fun.
Maybe that was the idea because you support e6. It's like a prophylaxis move, queen e8.
Although then this knight might go into...
she does go g5.
There could be
I know her really well.
Yeah, you do. There could be an opportunity for knight g6, then wrap the knight back around to e5 once you trade. Like knight d7, queen d7, knight g6, back to e5. That is definitely possible here, and it's what Humpy's going for.
Right, knight g6, and now rook f6 will be met with knight d7, you mentioned, right? Okay, but...
She did knight takes e5, the knight took back because you couldn't get away with taking this rook, and suddenly the position, it says, is not bad at all for black, and I think the reason why is this bishop. Something this bishop you would like to take and then throw this pawn away, like, psh, have it, right? But the pawn is in your bishop's path.
Yeah, absolutely. And knight c5 defends the c7 pawn, but suddenly now the engine likes it for white. I wonder why, because nothing changed in the position. So maybe the knight was simply better on e4 and you had to play c5?
She's probably worried about her knight getting trapped after c5 with some kind of f3, but it's...
Let's not blunder.
It's a really complicated position there. But I think the problem for black is at some point, not now, but at some point bishop a3 is going to be a problem.
That's true. So rook f7 might suggest itself, and you wait for white to play bishop a3, and then you decide what to do, because knight e4 will always run into f3 once again.
I'm just curious.
It's just not easy to play this position for black right now. We can go to...
Yeah, there's a crazy position between Irina and Savita.
We can go to that game.
So let's quickly... Oh, the game's over. So I knew I was going in the right direction. Knight e7 check. Unfortunately for Savita, wins this bishop on the spot, and that's why the game came to a close.
Wow, nice end and great win for Irina. Much needed, a sigh of relief, and now she can focus on having a good day tomorrow. So let's come back to our game that we were watching, or do you look at Wenjun versus Anna?
Okay, we could look at Wenjun. We haven't checked in on that game. She wasn't tied for first, and the rook's hanging. I was like, isn't there just a piece hanging on d7? But no, this rook on c1 is under threat.
Rook d1, that's interesting. And now the bishop and the a8 rook are hanging, so bishop g4 was forced, and now rook e1, rook b8. It's a nice tactical save by Anna, but
white
the c6.
Yeah, white's clearly better thanks to the advanced pawn. This is, you think, equal material. That's what people say, but white is up a much more advanced pass pawn, and black is up a very slow moving pass pawn.
Right, and e7 actually just like hangs the next move, so she's simply a pawn up. And it's not easy because c8 square is controlled, but then I go king h2 and bishop h3 at the right moment.
She might take it. She might take it with her rook at some moment, maybe now, and say that you can't really win this endgame so easily. So I think that she's relying on a fortress of sorts, and she might get it, because now you're just going after this f2 pawn.
Right. Bishop d5 is not a problem because... what just happened? Oh my god, this was so fast and so sudden, and now white is winning.
Wenjun takes it, moves to 6.5 points, and while that was happening, it looks like Humpy beats Divya Deshmukh, and Harika wins against Polina Shuvalova. So Harika and Wenjun, they end the day in a tie for first place, but this was the final position in Harika's game.
Very important win for Harika. We might have her in the studio, actually.
That would be great.
Yeah. Let's try to get Harika here, and this is a very big win for Harika. She's scored such how many points?
6.5.
Six and a
Both
half
she and
out of
Wenjun
9.
have 6.5 points.
Wow.
Yes. And Vantika, by the way, who we were praising before the round, she checkmates Nino Batsiashvili. So very nice end of the day for her.
Yeah, absolutely. Vantika found her form in the second half of the Blitz today and probably will continue it tomorrow. So great wins for Wenjun and Harika. Both of them tied on first place. Wow. And what about the other results, Robert?
We had all 5 games as decisive in this last round. So every single game was combative. Everyone had a winner, but that's bad news for some and great news for others because we know there's a two-way tie at the top between Harika and Ju Wenjun. They both have 6.5 points, and other players tomorrow will be having to climb back, claw at them trying to catch up.
Absolutely, but for now we have the leader of the tournament join us for a quick chat. Hi Harika.
Okay,
We'll try to get her on the stream. So she will sit there.
Yeah.
Just sit on this chair.
We're bringing Harika on right now. Well, first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
Pretty good day at Blitz, you might say.
Yeah, it was better than Rapid for sure.
And how did you kind of regroup after the Rapid chess heading into today's Blitz?
Actually, I'm not thinking much. I'm having a very hectic schedule, and after I played such a horrible first day, like my games were not up to mark at all. So I just decided that if I am fit and trying to play my best chess, and that's all for me in this trip because after a long time I'm playing so many tournaments in a row.
Oh, yes, of course. You mentioned that you also celebrated your daughter's birthday in between, and it's been hectic.
Like World Cup was like for a long time, and then I think I stayed there for 16-17 days, and then I went to celebrate my daughter's birthday party, and then I went to Germany, and then I came to Calcutta. It's been like, okay, when I agreed, I didn't know if I could do it because it's been a while. I played like so many tournaments in a row, but I thought, okay, let me go for it. And right now I'm just thinking to stay fresh and try to give best chess. That's it.
And only one more day. So how do you stay fresh for just 9 more games?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy just that it's just one more day. I'm just counting days to finish one by one. And yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to keep my routine, try to be fit and fresh. That's it.
You're going to the gym regularly. I saw some Instagram posts.
Yeah, that is the only way I can feel little fresh and not so tired. So I'm just trying to cope up with the fitness and like sleep, and that's all I'm doing.
That's great advice. No, if you're low on energy, save it as much as you can.
Yeah, definitely. I think it helped me a lot. So definitely, I think if someone is interested, they should try this routine. And it's it at least like after I think such a madness, that is helping me to an extent. So for sure.
Do you feel you're getting better and better as the tournament progresses?
No, I'm not thinking. As I told before, I'm not thinking so much. I'm just like staying focused and like every game to give my best, and that's it.
And I mean, India's experienced so many successes in the chess world recently. What can you say about Divya's win in the Rapid tournament?
It is amazing. Like to start with, from the World Cup, I was amazed by all the youngsters doing so well in a knockout format which they haven't played before. I think for me it took years to understand how to play it and like lot of experience. So when they did it in the first attempt, I was really amazed and inspired for sure. So I mean, I'm not a person who easily gets like impressed even with myself. So that is one thing I really understood, that there is long way to go for Indian chess now. It is a good start. And then Divya winning here, I think also like so many people are asking about why women's chess is not having youngsters. So I think this is a good way to tell and good start to say, and I'm happy that now we have world team, so many youngsters playing, and yeah, I'm hoping that there will be bright future for the youngsters for chess in India, and I think in general I feel it's a good moment.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear, Harika. Also, we have some very strong women's events happening in India now. This is the second edition of the Tata Steel. You are someone who always, voiced having women's round robin events in India. How do you feel about the fact that we have some of them now?
I think it's really important for the youngsters to get this experience and the confidence that they would get by playing these kind of events. I think when I was young, it took a lot of time to find invitations to get to play. Like, you know, it used to be madness to find places and like go to different places. And when you're getting in such an like good atmosphere, at the same time your comfort zone, I think this is the best way to improve in general. And you can already see the results when they're playing here, and when they're going to the next tournament, they're of course more confident about themselves. I think these kind of tournaments definitely improves in general growth of chess in India, and I'm very glad actually. To be frank, I wasn't sure if I wanted to come here because it is like really hectic schedule. But the only reason I came here is for the organizers. They insisted so much how important it is for me to play, and I think somewhere I got convinced only because of the way they said like how important it is. So I think I'm trying to do my bit of it, and yeah, this is like extremely important.
Well, the chat had your back today. We asked them who they were rooting for, and many of them were so happy to see you winning today.
Thank you. Yeah, like I mean, it's just like, you know, one day at a time, and I'm happy that today is a good day, and that's it. Thank you so much for everyone who is rooting, and I hope I'll try to play some good games tomorrow.
We are so impressed with the way you have played so far, Harika, and we wish you the best. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your views. It was super nice having you here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And it's Harika in a tie for first place with Wenjun, who also won her ninth round game. They lead the field with 6.5 points out of 9 games, and all 5 matchups were decisive in that final round. So Harika and Wenjun have a 1.5 ahead of Humpy and Divya. Humpy Conero did beat Divya in that ninth and final round, but we can talk about the standings all we want. You know, Nino struggling, Vantika getting an important win in the last game. But I just want to say it's so amazing to hear Harika's thoughts and just to hear how genuinely happy she is for other people to succeed. Because sometimes in chess, when it's such an individual game, she's at the top of the standings here, but Divya was in the rapid. Sometimes we feel a little bit of jealousy, right? Just in any sport, that's true. But to hear Harika celebrate the many successes and say she was impressed, it's really great to hear.
Impressed and inspired. I mean, she was so articulate, and she's someone who's so vocal about her thoughts always. I really like the way that she's so genuine in all her interviews, and even right now she spoke about how this tournament will also help the youngsters get more opportunities, get the experience, and that's what it's showing, right? We are getting new stars, and she's genuinely happy for them.
And she's one of the stars. We don't, just because there are new stars doesn't mean we forget about Humpy and Harika. And I think that's the level of appreciation that sometimes is missed by the public, is they think that there can only be one, that we can only have one. No, we can have multiple. And if we're being honest, I mean, Harika and Humpy are huge parts of the success of the younger generation.
They are the pioneers. They are the ones who inspired them. They are the one who showed the youngsters that you can actually reach to this level. And now the youngsters have reached there, or are trying to reach there, and probably go even further, and so are both of them.
And we can see that from today. Harika, she struggled in the rapid. She just admitted to us it was beneath what the expectation she has of herself, her own standards. The Blitz today was pretty great from her, though.
Yeah, absolutely. It was so much fun to watch, and she's played such great chess, and leading the tournament. She seems so calm and composed about it. I was shocked, after a Blitz, you're so restless, you have so much energy within you, and she seemed like as if she has just come out from a meditation session. She seemed very, very calm for the amount of nerves that must have taken her to play these games. And of course, we wish her the best, and so about the other players as well have been very impressive.
Wenjun continues to go under the radar. She is the women's world champion. She's so exceptional, and yet somehow she's like a half point back for a bunch of it, and then she catches up in the penultimate round or thereabouts. So Wenjun is tied with Harika, 6.5 out of 9. She lost 2 games in a row today. She lost 0 games all the rapid. Are you impressed with how she loses and then immediately bounces back with several wins?
I'm just impressed with the amount of professionalism that she has. She just all of her games are high quality. She makes the amount of points that are required to win the tournament, and in case someone makes more, then they win the tournament. That's it. I mean, it's not like she's playing bad in any way.
She lost 2 games, one on time in a position that was just complicated.
Yeah.
And then she lost to Harika, which was a beautiful game. I actually wish we asked Harika about that game because that was the rook. The rook went from E4 to G4 to B4 to H4.
Yeah.
That was a dance.
Yeah, that was actually Harika made a lot of rook dances in today's games, right? The rook on against Vantika as well. Her rook was going from B6 to B4 against Divya in the first round as well. The rook kept going shifting on the 4th rank, and yeah, it was a fun game to watch against Wenjun. Of course, we should have asked her. Maybe tomorrow we get a chance.
We were so excited just to hear her thoughts, and I know you and Harika are such longtime friends, but I just have to say again, it's so great to hear her thoughts about the younger generation, how well they're playing, and Wenjun just like quietly tied for first with Harika, and they have a point and a half separate from the field. So I guess, Sonia, before we head on out here like the players do. Do you think anyone else besides those two have a legitimate chance to win this Blitz event?
Definitely, there are 9 more games, Robert. I keep reminding.
I believe you now.
And Humpy did beat Divya, so Humpy is on 5 points, and Divya as well is on 5. So both of them are tied.
Yes.
And on 3rd and 4th place, and Polina on 4 and 5. I think all 5 of them have a chance to win the tournament, and maybe someone will sneak up and win all 9 games. Do you think that's possible?
It's possible, but it's very improbable. But it kind of reminds me of cricket in a way, because the tournament goes on for a long time, just like a match, and sometimes it gets rained out and you just start over again. That's not happening here. The results do count, but I do think that you're right, that those 5 players, including Polina at 4.5, they all have a chance. And Divya, I think she also deserves another shout out. Humpy had an up and down day and ended on a great note by beating Divya, but Divya started with 2 losses, and so many of us, when we lose our first couple games, we struggle, we kind of tune out. We're like, let's just try to finish this tournament as quickly as possible. Divya had a great stretch in the middle, and she lost to Humpy in that last game, and that's all credit to Humpy for outplaying her compatriot.
Yeah, definitely. So I think all of the players that we mentioned have a very fair chance of winning the tournament, and we'll find out tomorrow. Actually, the games begin a half an hour early.
An hour early, right?
An hour early?
I don't remember.
2:30.
Okay, I'll trust you. 1
1
hour
hour early.
So maybe my trust was misplaced.
I'm sorry. My bad.
I would have showed up, for waiting for the car, and no one would be there because I was late.
Everyone would be in the chat, and we would not be there, but the broadcast would start without us. But we'll see you tomorrow at 2 p.m. Indian Standard Time for the last day of the Tata Steel Chess India Rapid and Blitz, the last day of the Blitz, and we'll have the winner tomorrow.
Yes, we will. So stay tuned, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow. You will not want to miss the final day here of the Women's Blitz event at Tata Steel Chess.